Welcome, fellow brave believers. I'm Sean Griffin. You're watching Kingdomcast here on Kingdom in Context. Thanks for joining us. And tonight we've got a special guest from Conspiracy Castle, Mr. Alex Stein. So we're happy to have him on. But first, before we go to the main segment tonight, I just want to, we already have a whole bunch of people in the chat. People are really excited about tonight's show. So I just want to say hello to some of you that are constantly here for the live chat. We really appreciate you. And you always bring good, positive interaction. And so it's a huge blessing to us. Frosty Rucker's back, Steffi M, Petty 43, Paul Levi, A Big Red G, Mr. Bear, Tiago Montiel, Sandra Zemielkowski. I think I said that right. Mr. Howard Sanford's back. Hello, sir. Vigilant Watchman. Welcome back, everybody. Mary W, Master Soup. It's probably one of my favorite handles on YouTube, Master Soup. Carla Malberg is back. A Big Red G. Let me see here. Looks like Kyle Jacob Monsanto is here. Henry Salem or Henrik Syme. Welcome back, sir. Arterios, Demi Moore, Carly McGinn, Sister Payne. West Blaze Music is in the house, guys. Let me see. Stephen Belk. Lion Within Us is here. Thank you to all the moderators that are here. I really appreciate you guys keeping the chat civil. And it helps me out because I can't always watch it while we do some of the interviews and the presentations. So I really appreciate you guys. I want to welcome everyone that's watching after the fact. If you didn't catch us live, we do this Monday through Thursday most of the time, unless I'm busy with Liiighthouse. We do this Monday through Thursday, 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. That's 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. And just come in, interact, ask questions in the chat. As always, we always do a Q&A at the end of the podcast because you not only we'll have questions about the scriptures we may cover if it's a presentation, or like tonight we'll have guests. You may want to ask the guests something, so we'll do a Q&A. So make sure, as always, you put your questions in all caps. That way we can see them and the moderators can see them easily, and make sure you get your question answered. So we don't want to miss it. All right, without further ado, let's say hi to Mr. Alex Stein.
Sean, my freaking camera is unfocused. You know, I have this really nice Logitech camera, and of course it's not working as soon as you put me on. It's just so ridiculous. I can't believe it. It's the Illuminati. I can't believe it. It was just working fine. I have to get a new camera. It's okay. Ridiculous.
It's okay. I think the autofocus is struggling to keep up with your energy.
I know, but it's just such a pain in the butt. I'm looking at myself. I look ridiculous. I just here. Let me see if I can do one thing. Let me see if I switch it to. Let's see if this does anything. Okay, this is.
I see now.
Well, this isn't that much better. Oh my gosh. Okay,
there you go.
Okay, this is a little better. This one's a little better focusing. Okay, guys.
I like the castle that you're in, Conspiracy Castle.
I know. The thing is, Sean, I got to put on a lot of accoutrement. When you have a lifestyle like this, when you have as many cats as I have 4 cats, you have to have a castle like this because there's these cats with their litter boxes spread apart, dude. They don't want to look at each other when they use the restroom. They want their own area to go. So that's why I kind of have to have a big opulent place like this. And yeah, is it a little much? I'll be honest, yes, but I'm a little much. So, it matches my personality.
I understand. Oh, guys, tonight, in addition to Mr. Alex Stein, we actually have a surprise guest that's going to join us for this discussion tonight about all things conspiracy. Mrs. Rose 777. Welcome.
Rose, woo!
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. It is quite an honor. I love Alex Stein, and I would have been a very happy audience member. And when Sean reached out to me to join, I couldn't be more excited. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back. It's good to see you again. And tonight, guys, we're going to be I invited Alex on because he started a YouTube channel recently. He's been going out. He's been getting, not just doing videos. He's a man on the street. This guy's going out. He's interviewing people. He's breaking the rules at Target, wearing masks over his forehead, not his mouth, and getting away with it. Like he's going against the social, or the quote unquote new social norms that we're all kind of struggling with. And the 3 of us on screen are bucking against. So in fact, my wife has a mask that looks like I should have brought it out, but it's got all these spikes on it. It's like white and black, and it's got all these spikes on it. So we always get some, and then she's got just an actual chicken mask that if we're forced to put it on somewhere, she just puts on one of those audacious, ridiculous masks. And I just wave and say, no, thank you. So people always look at us.
Well, Sean, I love that goofy mask, but it's funny you say that because it's kind of serious because, there's the Flattoberfest is coming up, right? We'll get into that. And literally, I recently flew. The one time I've flown since the pandemic, the fake pandemic, was I flew to New York to visit David Weiss, and the flying experience sucks so bad that I don't want to fly to Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's not even that big of a flight, all because of a mask. And you're like, why are you such a bitch ass? You won't get on a plane and just put on the mask for a second. It's just such a pain in the ass that it's not even about the mask. It's if you don't have it on, everybody's looking at you. When you don't have it on, everybody's looking at you like you're a jerk. So it's the negative vibrations. It's not even about the mask. It's like the negative hate that you're stuck on a plane with a bunch of zombies. I don't want to do that experience again. It was terrible. It was almost traumatic.
And just realizing that the negative energy is coming because you're not complying to a ritual that is designed to hurt the future of humanity. And also, when we put on the mask, it's increasing the chances that children will have to put on the mask too, and they're innocent beings who can't defend themselves. And Alex, when I heard about you going on the plane and how you had to just put on that face shield, which isn't even technically the kind of mask that actually suffocates, it hurt my heart. I felt hurt on your behalf, and I wasn't even there. So are you going to drive to Flattoberfest?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. If it comes down to it, I'm going to have to fly because I want to go. Multiple people are you got to go. I'm just in this dilemma, I don't want to get on that plane. Sean, have you flown since the pandemic? How was your flying experience?
Haven't flown yet. No.
See, nobody has. Nobody's flying anymore. How are these airlines staying in business? Nobody's.
I'll tell you, it's from the stimulus package back in March and April.
Yes.
Did you guys did y'all research how much stuff was pushed into that stimulus package that had nothing to do with COVID?
Yes, yes. And it reminded me of 9/11. Remember when American Airlines was going to go out of business, but then of course the government saved them. And so I just see this as 9/11 2.0.
Do you guys know that NASA got $60 million in the Corona stimulus package 4 or 5 months ago?
So they got doubled in one day.
60 million. Did you guys know that National Museum of History in New York got $30,000?
Yeah, but that makes sense. I'm not surprised.
Why does anyone besides nurses, hospitals, and the unemployed possibly need any kind of stimulus? It's all fraudulent. It's all fraudulent. Yes. In fact,
but have you not heard about all the guys going to jail though, Sean, for misappropriating fraudulent coronavirus loans? That's all over.
You mean the governor of Colorado, Jared?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's
he's still a
thousands
governor.
of people.
He didn't go to jail.
I don't know. And a lot of times
he misappropriated almost $1 billion.
Well, I don't know about him, but I know that there have been people that have gone to jail for using the coronavirus money to purchase cars and jewelry and stuff like that. It's in the news. It's ridiculous.
That sounds like a senator level game right there.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be in the Senate.
Some organized crime style stuff. That's what I'm talking about.
If you have to fly, what if they just sold you a ticket in the cargo hold below? You could just chill down.
I wouldn't put my cat in there. I wouldn't fly in there ever. No way, Jose.
They would just market it as the premier first class. No one's around you.
It's not even about the match. You can fake them out. You can even bring the bag and the soda, and every time every time the flight attendant comes by, you can pretend to eat. You got to put on the play rows, I'm doing my theater class, we're back in theater class. But it's not just them. Every time you go to the bathroom, every time you use a restroom, every time you go in the overhead bin to get your headphones or whatever, the negative vibrations is just. You people think that's woo-woo or hokey, but obviously I believe that we're all energetic beings, and I think that's it's just common knowledge. Without energy, we die. If our bodies don't have energy, we die. So when people are in a group like that and they're all having that same metaphysical feeling, I believe personally that it can intensify, it coagulates, and you have a coagulation of negative energy, and you can actually feel the bad vibrations. At least that is how my experience was on my flight to New York. And the flight to New York, because it was a hotspot going to and from a hotspot, they had a lot of more trauma-based mind control devices, forms you had to fill out before you landed, this is what was so freaky. In the airport, it's every 5 minutes. Coronavirus safety is our number one concern. 6 feet social distancing. But it wasn't that. It was the loop that it played on. It was so repetitive. I was thinking the woman in the gift shop or whatever, how does she hear this? every 2 minutes, like social distancing is how we get it's like it's the same guy from a recording playing the social distancing guidelines. It was traumatic for me to spend the hour that I spent in the airport at getting my chips and soda, whatever you want to call it, the snack stand, because all the restaurants are closed. So it was only like pre-made food. So you couldn't even get a slice of pizza. You get a bag of chips, you get some like cut fruit in a plastic thing. It was like having a grocery store. It's just none of the restaurants were open. There's no dining. You weren't allowed to go. Every single table was done. And every 2 seconds, COVID-19 is serious. If you spot symptoms of COVID-19, please fill out the form and, see a COVID representative. COVID-19, COVID this, coronavirus, COVID. I mean, it's just.
So there's there was a store that I was in the town that I was in that basically they make you wear masks. This was back in probably like May, it was really, the hype was still going on. And I went in there and I really wanted to get something in that store. And so I grabbed a mask that says, warning, does not protect you or me from COVID-19. Right. And I had it here and they said, sir, you need to pull it up over your nose here.
It wasn't high enough on your nose?
They kicked me out of the store because every time they said, you need to pull your mask up, and they were like, in their eyes, they were fretting. And every time they would say that, I would pull it down and go, I'm sorry, what'd you say? So they got really upset and they kicked me out of the store.
Sean, it's because you're giving power to people that have never had power. That's why they like enforcing it. These people that are enforcing it have never had any power over anybody, not even in their own life. Probably they probably have a domestic husband. They probably have a weird situation where their kids control their lives. So the one time they get to go to their work at the Cracker Barrel or the Hobby Lobby or wherever the heck this is, just middle America. When they get to be a freaking annoying person and say, put that mask over your nose, they love it. They get joy out of it.
It's like they've made everybody who works for the airlines into a TSA agent because the TSA agents are going through the same thing. You know what I would suggest, Alex? I would suggest bringing a packed lunch of really healthy food and a tuning fork. Maybe you need to biofield tune on the airplane.
I'm going to sage it and then get arrested. I'm going to light some sage on the flight. And then I'm not smoking. I'm just saging the place, guys. How fast would I go to jail for that, Rose?
It would be very quick, I think.
You think I'd go viral? Well, I may be worth it. What if I filmed it? I might go viral. Man sages airplanes because of bad vibrations. That might be worth it for the viral video if we get 5 million hits.
Stephen Schofield's saying that Macron took off his mask to cough. That's hilarious.
It's ironic, and I have a cousin that says the same thing. I said, isn't it unhealthy if you sneeze into your mask and then all the saliva and the particles are rubbing against your whole face? And he says, oh, well, I'd always pull down my mask to sneeze. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense.
What's crazy is several years, for the last 20 years, we've been pushed with propaganda for global warming by not just the governments of the world, but also academia. And so in 2012 and in 2015, they did studies on increased carbon dioxide levels that we were supposedly breathing due to global warming and climate change, and how it affected your cognitive faculties and your motor skills, and how it was going to, make us dumber and less capable and cause sickness and disease. And then all that quote unquote science is out the window right now.
No, I know. I got to talk about this.
Trap that CO2 right there.
Listen to this. So Rose is in Louisiana. I went to LSU. I graduated from LSU in 2010. I actually went there my sophomore year. My freshman year, I went to the University of South Florida and played football there. But listen, when so as my sophomore year, as my introductory geography class or whatever it was, they made us watch An Inconvenient Truth, and they said that they basically said in my, whatever you want to call it, freshman, even as my sophomore year, freshman class. Dude, the world was going to end. They told us that in 20 years that we were going to be underwater. They said Miami is going to be underwater, New Orleans, and Hurricane Katrina had just happened. They said, they were like, 5 years, everything's going to melt. All the ice caps are going to melt. And this is a college class, and the teacher, now looking back, because then I was just a dumb 19-year-old kid. I'm like, I didn't realize this teacher had any sort of political agenda. I thought it was just some nerdy teacher. Now I look back, and all these academics, all these academias, are like social justice warriors, trauma-based, social engineered monsters, for the left and for the official story. dude, in that class, I just remember how being so scared and being like, shit, the world's gonna end. Climate change is real. Like, climate change is so real. Like, I wanted to go save the whales. I was gonna go save the earth. And
you know what I did, Alex?
What? I bet you did a lot, Rose. I bet you did a lot for the climate.
Well, I checked real estate prices, beachfront property in Florida, and it was not going down. So I knew that it was nonsense.
That's one of the biggest real estate guys in Florida. I forget his name. He's on like one of those like Valuetainment, one of those guys. He's like, global warming is not real because none of these banks would finance these properties on the water unless global warming wasn't real. And he's like, the banks know. There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I think the academia, like the colleges, are just a hotbed for all sorts of indoctrination. And that my freshman year of college, I had a humanities teacher spend 3 classes, a total of 4.5 hours out of 3 classes trying to convince us there was no God.
He really had that whole that was his agenda, basically, that God didn't exist and that we were just a cosmic accident. And it was probably a challenge to him to convert people. It's weird when it gets like that, because with my views that there is a creator, and I mean, we'll get into that. I want to explain to people that he is real, but it's not my job to convince anybody that doesn't believe he's real, if that makes sense. You know, I want to talk to people that are on the fence.
In fact, Alex, you sound like me, because many often, like I've debated atheists on my channel. I've spoken with people of different religious faiths, and I tell them all the time. I've even spoken with people of my own leanings. You know, they believe in Jesus Christ as the Messiah, and we talk about the Bible and have discussions and debates. And many times I tell them this statement. I say, look, you know, whether you believe the scriptures or not, that's a whole different topic. I just want to make sure that you understand what they actually say.
Yeah, I love that about you.
Better grounded to know whether you want to believe it or not, you know, because I'd hate for you to reject it out of ignorance because you just heard some bad information about it and ran with it. So I totally understand that mindset.
Well, and they do that on purpose. I think the scriptures misinterpreted and they, you know, kind of do a lot of disinformation to make it lame, for lack of a better word. You know, they purposely make
you should listen to my channels tomorrow, brother. It's not lame over here.
Yeah, you should, Alex. This is such
But that's
an
what they try
channel.
to do, though. You know what I mean? That's what they try to do. They tried to lamify, you know, God. And it's not just Christianity, it's every religion, from Mormonism to Jehovah's Witness. Every religion is freaking lame. If you're a Muslim, you're a terrorist. I mean, dude, every religion is uncool. And you're only cool if you're an atheist and you don't believe Jesus Christ died for our sins. That's how you're cool. You know what I mean? Because Cardi B doesn't care about God. You know what I mean? That you know, Will Smith doesn't care about God. Johnny Depp doesn't care about God because they're cool.
Well, not the God of the Bible, at least. There is a God that they care about, but
yeah, the one I want to talk about.
Yeah, they just don't talk about him.
You know what I found really interesting? I was always afraid of what was going to happen when I had to take science classes in college, because in high school, I did really well in all of my subjects except in science. There were questions I had, like, how could you have an atmosphere next to nothing? And little did I know I was like a secret flat earther without ever realizing it, you know? But,
that's how I feel, Rose. Now looking back, I feel like I was kind of a secret flat earther the whole time. I'm not just saying that. I feel like that.
So when I got to college, I thought it was going to be way more hardcore, and it was going to be concepts, and I was going to have to demonstrate my comprehension in very complicated ways. And Biology 100, it was all true or false and multiple choice questions on the tests. And I mean, it really was just memorization. And I remember that you know, during the first lecture when she was basically saying, if you like pay attention to these notes, you will do fine on the test. And she spent a very long time on this one question. She said, this will be on the test. True or false? Evolution is a fact. And she took time to like basically have a debate with anyone in the audience, or I call it the audience probably because I just figure biology was a stagecraft at this point. But, you know, for anyone that wanted to argue that, she spent the whole class making sure that everyone was on the same page, that you were going to get that question wrong if you didn't say true, evolution was a fact. And I thought, that's so interesting that she's spending all this time just making sure that everyone was going to comply with this one question. And at the time, I just chalked it up to, well, this is science class, and, you know, she has to focus on that aspect, and this isn't church class and stuff like that. But looking back, I mean, it's kind of evil the way that it was all implemented so that people would just be order following in the same way that people are order following now, putting on the mask.
Rose, can you imagine if that biology class, can you even imagine if they would have had those questions aligned to say true or false, were we created? and the right
Yes.
answer to be true. And can you imagine the backlash from the faculty, from the media, from the parents, from the school board? It would be crazy.
Yeah. You know what I would do if I was a biology teacher? I would want to say, how does a zygote come into existence? Because it's a scientific fact that the zygote is a single cell that is a miraculous act of creation. There's no real way to explain it or describe it. Now, I thought that going into college that they would be able to basically like demonstrate and maybe show me a little movie of how a zygote is created. But it's a miracle, baby.
Yeah,
It's just a flash of light.
The idea of abiogenesis, a cell splitting on its own, is impossible. And the fact that they say that literally everything came from nothing is insane. And I say this all the time. Literally, the same mathematical equation for evolution is the same as a tornado going through a junkyard and creating a 747 airplane on the other end. Because basically, that's what they say that happened. They say that lightning struck primordial soup, basically pond scum, and then a cell split on its own, and that cell became a fish, and then that fish evolved into a monkey, and that monkey evolved into you and me. And they teach that as a fact in school because Charles Darwin saw some birds' beaks change over time because they couldn't get their food because these rocks, were weird, and they couldn't get their food, so the birds with longer beaks were able to survive longer on this island. And that's called adaptation. That's not evolution. Their beaks didn't turn into penises. You know what I mean? The fish didn't turn into a dog. And it's just ridiculous. It's all a lie. But they teach that in school like it's a fact. Like Charles Darwin invented and figured out something that no other person ever knew about until he figured it out. It's so
Alex, don't you know they explained this already in 1993 in Jurassic Park with Jeff Goldblum? I'll try to do my impression real quick. He goes, life finds a way.
Exactly.
They already explained this to us, right? We don't need all the details. They just need they need the bumper stickers for us to remember.
And I think Darwin was actually, part of a whole social engineering agenda, because remember, although he maybe didn't plan this himself, his ideas were used in a completely different a different way when people were saying white man's burden, social Darwinism, the idea of imperialism and saving the savages by going in and destroying their land and enslaving them. Who's the real savage? Social Darwinism is evil.
Yeah, he's terrible. He's the worst. I mean,
well, that's basically what atheists come about today, which I'll be honest with you guys, atheism is just basically an apolitical version of communism, in my opinion, because essentially it's built upon this fundamental philosophy of the strongest survive. And
well, this is how I feel. I actually like atheists in this sense. I feel like a lot of reason why people are atheists is they've had some sort of trials and tribulations in their life that led them astray from God. Because I think everybody inherently thinks that they are some sort of special creation. They think inherently there's a meaning to this, and they think that they have a soul. But so something happens to their life that makes them like mad at God, so then they have this animosity towards God, and then they see other people doing good and praising God, and they're like, I'm not doing good. Why isn't God, so you get mad at God. So I see these atheists that call themselves atheists, but really they actually believe in God. They're just mad at God. So they don't know how to punish God than to go on the side of the atheists. It's just the opposite team. It's like, I like the Dallas Cowboys, but a lot of kids will like a different team than their parents. They're just picking the opposite team because they don't want to be Muslim. They don't want to be Jehovah's Witness. They don't want to be Mormon. They don't want to be Scientologist. So that's the cool team. I want to be atheist. But really and truly, it's just because God just, for some reason, they're unhappy because they feel like they got shortchanged by God in some sort of situation. And now that's not the case for everybody, but I think that's the case for a lot of the majority of atheists that are like white guys or white women that probably grew up not poor, but just have, maybe social family issues, or their brothers and sisters were competing and their parents didn't give them enough love. And so that's what chose them to go into academia, and that's what chose them to go into science. And so that's what chose them. They're mad because they're mad at God because their parents got divorced when they were 14 years old and they had to go live with their mom in Albuquerque or whatever. And so that's why they don't believe in God. And I think there's a lot of weird stuff like that out there that is the reason why people disconnect and go the atheist or agnostic route. Because really and truly, when I was kind of atheist and agnostic, that's kind of why I was like really religious in high school. And I was supposed to be a really good football player my senior year. And I just didn't have that good a year. And it was a little more to it than that. I had some issues with my mother, was going through some drug and alcohol issues. And so I kind of was mad at God, and that kind of broke me away from God. I was kind of like, so in college, I was wild and crazy. I did not believe in God, but I was kind of like, why didn't the dinosaurs and the Bible? I was kind of the devil's advocate a little bit. And
no.
Yeah, dude. I'm not saying I'm so good Christian, great guy now, but regardless, in high school, I got baptized. And when I got baptized, and I was just really into it. I just know that there is a creator. At least I felt that. I could always feel like when I prayed or when I was in a foxhole that I could connect to somebody. When I prayed, I felt like somebody could hear me, not that they were talking to me, but I felt like I was connecting to something else, to a spiritual being.
Alex, I tell you what, I'm kind of an old man, right? You said you're 30?
33.
So you're 33. So I'm 40. And Rose is still 21. We'll just leave her there. And so
no, I'm 35.
She's 35. She's 35.
Perfect, so, right in the middle, basically, almost.
Basically, yeah. I've been, I've been a believer since July 17th, 1997. And in all of my years studying the Bible, trying to make sense of it, because I'm the kind of guy that I'm not just simply going to believe what people tell me and just run with that all the time. Now, I did in some parts of my life because I didn't know any better before I woke up to the creation model and things like that. But for the most part, I was still studying this book for 20 years, trying to make sure I could understand it and coherently so I could actually explain it and talk about it. I didn't want to be the kind of person that was just like, you run into friends and family that ask you questions about the Bible and you can't answer it. And you're just like, oh, I don't know, man, I just have faith. That did not cut it for me. I wanted to have an actual answer. So I was always studying like the Bible, like a nerd. Like there would be people out on a Saturday night party and I'm home reading the Bible. Like,
every night, Sean,
not every night, not
every Saturday night, but you were like, see, that's how I'm like
enough to be here today.
Yeah, I'm saying you were really dialed in.
I was just trying to make sure I could actually find the answer, because if I couldn't find the answer in the book, then we'd have huge logical issues and I would have to discard the book and the faith. But the more I dug in, looking from we talk about context here on this channel, right, which requires reading comprehension and logic. And that's where I would try to read the Bible to understand it, because I'm an aspiring writer. And I've written 2 self-published novels, and I've got this big trilogy I'm working on in the future. But
well, if you like to read that much, you better be a writer. If you're reading the Bible on Saturday night, you better like to write. Yeah,
I approached it a little different than most people, right? Because they just listen to what the pastor says. They kind of take it, his word as the final word, and then they go with it. But I didn't view it like that, because I would read the whole chapter, the chapter before and after. I'd look up the definition of words. This is how you find context. And then, because this is what I would do if I'm crafting a story, I'm trying to build a good, character development, plot, denouement, all these huge major concepts. And one of the big things within a story that you want to make sure you establish is the setting. So this is where in about 2015, I woke up to the setting that's being established in the Bible in Genesis, which is the creation model, which is the firmament. That's why I'm now jokingly call myself a firmamentalist, because the firmament is mentioned over 500 times in the Bible. It's one of the most mentioned theological ideas in the Bible. It's literally the setting where the whole story takes place is put forth in this enclosed creation model that has vast description. And so when I started coming into this idea and studying it out, the whole book started making perfect sense.
You know how I knew it was all real, Sean? All I had to do is see Werner von Braun's headstone. It said Psalms 19:1. The firmament showeth his handiwork. That's how I knew it's real, because he was the most occultic, freaky guy in the world. I mean, Lord knows whatever he did in Germany, that can be debated, this and that. We don't even need to go into that foggy water. But he came through Operation Paperclip. He basically created the NASA program. For him to say that on his headstone, there's no other context is key. You just said that. What is the context of that quote? There's no other way to take that other than the description of our earth and the firmament shows. I mean, there's no other way contextually. What could he be insinuating with that psalm from the Bible that has so much? You could say the Bible's allegoric or this and that, but that particular psalm, there's not much allegory in that psalm at all. I mean, it's pretty straightforward to the point. And that for me, it's like, that's really also what showed me that God was real. And not that I was ever really, like I said, I was never really disconnected to God, but really like Pizzagate and all that stuff, seeing that Hillary Clinton and them were into Moloch and all this devil worshiping. That's what really woke me up to God. I'm like, oh shoot, like they're into transhumanism, living forever. Because I was telling somebody earlier, as a young kid, the idea of transhumanism, like for like all these movies, Wally's and stuff, sounds cool. Like, oh, you're going to plug my brain into a computer, I can live forever. Like, oh, that's cool. Like Stephen Hawking, like the idea of it is kind of cool. The Disney idea of it, but the real idea of it, the Elon Musk idea of the neural link is evil. You live forever and you're locked in this prison of a computer. And as soon as you go into it, you know, you wouldn't want to be in the machine. You probably want to go back to your body immediately. I'm just guessing. I don't know this, but it's all like the grass is greener on the other side. But regardless, it's just that transhumanism agenda to live forever. That's because they don't want to face the creator. They don't want to go to God.
They want to be God.
Yeah.
They want to be. Why would anyone want to live forever in this physical realm when we're spiritual beings? Now, I'm so sorry. Before we get too ahead, back to the whole idea of atheism, there's this question that I've been wanting to ask you, Sean, and I hope this doesn't seem too off track.
No,
but you're always so good with context, and maybe you can bring in some biblical ideas to help me here. I would love for you to tell me how you feel about these two contrasting ideas and maybe some context to help educate me. So when I was a lot younger and I was questioning and like really on the fence about things, I would make lots of I would compliment atheists in a sense that, oh, I really respect an atheist who's choosing to be a good person and do the right thing just because they want to be a good person and do the right thing, and they are not doing it because of a Christian who might be afraid being a good person and doing the right thing because they're afraid of going to hell. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were.
So Rose, is that scenario between those two different personalities? Is the scenario just for the sake of the thought experiment that is the established predisposition of the atheist that he wants to be a good person?
The atheist is already better because the atheist is moral to be moral on its own, but the Christian's only moral because he has to pay a consequence. So the atheist is technically better, which is illogical, but that's what the mind.
It's a false dichotomy. It's a false dichotomy, but I'm trying. I don't know what. Maybe I was just trying to make excuses for trying to wrap my head around why an atheist would be good, but maybe there's a Bible. I thought maybe that there would be a scriptural. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So for the atheist, I'm going to pull up the scripture for you that would cause him to do that. And then for the Christian, that's where I would say that sounds kind of like a straw man predisposition or argument, because that's assuming that the Christian is only doing his faith out of fear of consequence, as opposed to what Romans 5 and many other places in scripture talks about, is where you have the love of God shed abroad in your heart, and it prompts you to want to love your fellow man and love God and do well for yourself, because that's now in you. You have the deposit of the Spirit of God in you, which only breeds love out of you. So that's an atheist argument that's imposed on to believers. That's a straw man. So that would be the second part of the question, because yes, while I try to have a healthy respect for my creator and I want to reverence him and respect to do his behavior, which are the commandments, because he tells me, it would be good for me. And yes, this is what I'll be evaluated on at the judgment. But at the same time, I don't cower in fear. That's not the type of use of the Hebrew word fear, like in Psalms where it says the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. It's talking about respect. It's a poor translation into the English. So, but let's go to the first part of your scenario, which I'll pull this up on screen for us real quick. And this is actually in Romans chapter 2. I was going to show you, remind me to come back to Genesis chapter 3, Alex, because I was going to explain something you mentioned.
That's one thing I want to say. We should dive deep into Genesis. We should start. So I'll come on your show again, but I'd really like to talk about Genesis and Nimrod tonight. If we could talk about that, I really have a lot of questions. Yeah.
You just threw up these huge topics, and my audience is just like cheering. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So basically, Rose, here in Romans chapter 2. Actually, the end of, guys remember in Greek, but when these letters were written in Greek almost 2,000 years ago, they didn't have chapter and verses in them. Those were added much, much, much later. So this, just imagine, there is no chapter break between 1 and 2. And so at the end of chapter 1, he goes on to explain how.
But I have an important question with that, though. So about what time period did they start doing the chapters and verses? Because there's just so much symbolism with the chapters and verses, like Genesis chapter 11, verse 9, the Tower of Babel. They say they flipped that around 9/11, and that's some sort of a occultic meaning. So what is the years?
Well, you're getting into gematria, which is esoteric in its own right and is up to interpretation a lot of times.
I know it's all bullcrap. A lot of it's bullcrap, of course. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. But these people try to pull something from it. What year did they start saying chapter and verse?
It would be around the time of the 14th, 15th century when you had the.
That's when our history started. That's when it started. When they started chapters and verses. That's when everything got got manipulated, that's when our fake history
Well,
started.
no, you should watch
Boom.
some of my videos,
Solved.
brother. I go back
Solved.
to the first century AD, and we explain how they started immediately taking stuff out of scripture from the Greek Septuagint in order to hide all the prophecies that became true from Yeshua's life. And so the Pharisees, the same guys that killed and murdered Yeshua, immediately started tampering with the text in the following centuries.
What about the slave Bible? Have you ever heard of the slave Bible, Sean?
Well, that's a little bit different topic.
Yeah, but have you heard of the slave Bible?
I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah. Did you know, Rose, that there's in the South, they had a slave Bible that had all the scripture that like working for your master and following that leader. But anything about like any of the Bible scriptures about like breaking away and starting your new life. You know?
It's in Leviticus. It's the year of Jubilee, when every seventh year you're supposed to let your servants go.
Yeah,
that's
what they took out.
Money, or they're working for you to earn land, or they're trying to pay off a debt to you. You're supposed to give them a year of Jubilee and let them go. But yeah, the slave Bible edited stuff intentionally. But there's still people doing that today, Alex, with different translations, or they make all kinds of horrible translations to say stuff that doesn't. Like the New International, or the National, the NIV. The New International Version of the Bible has a lot of verses missing out of it, and so it's actually printed by the same publishing company that prints the Satanic Bible.
Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah.
It's Zondervan Publishing. Anyway, so real quick.
We know the Bible business is a scam anyway, because it's the #1 book every year. And who makes money? Like, I know a few people buy nice Bibles, but it's like,
do you realize that the Bible is sold over 100 million copies every year? It outsells the best-selling books so much.
Yeah,
so
but that
every year.
is a lie. That is a lie, because
What's a lie?
Listen, there are people buying the book, but when you say the Bible is the #1 book sold, that's companies buying the book and giving them for free. So when you say that, I'm not calling you a liar, but when every year 100,000 books sells, it's not people going to Barnes and Noble and picking the Bible off the shelf. So that in its sense is a conspiracy, because every single hotel has a Bible in it. There's a reason to that. Do you see what I'm saying, Sean? As a conspiracy theorist,
I would say
you can't say it's the #1 sold book.
Supposedly the reason that there's actually controversy over the reason that it's sold so much, that they don't report the numbers that it does sell, because the publishers want to promote the fictional books, like on the best-selling list in the New York Times. So this is why they don't report the Bible, because it outsells them literally by like.
I'm not saying it's not the
millions
#1
and
book.
millions.
I'm not saying that. I agree that it's the #1 book. I'm just saying that's kind of a psyop in itself, though. It's like the number sells. I don't know how to explain.
But you're assuming that the people actually read it, and that's what I try to deal with on my channel, is to get people excited and encouraged to actually read the Bible, because people will get Bibles gifted to them all the time in our country.
Well, that's part
but that
of the
doesn't mean they read
that's part of the side, because like everybody's buying the Bible, like, oh, I don't need it. Then everybody else figure out the Bible for me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they overflow you with information, so you choose to be like, I don't want it. You know what I mean? That you're just sick of the Bible by the time you hear about the Bible. They make it lame. That's what a society does. They try to make it uncool to be a Christian. They've literally done that. You know, they've done that. Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, perfect example.
Yeah.
That's all you got to look at.
No, I understand the indoctrination. They try to make them bigots, racists, supremacists. They try to make them all the bad names in order to be a Christian. While it's actually just the opposite. Like so many other things in our society they lie about, when it's just the opposite. It's the other opposite, which is people that actually genuinely want good for themselves and neighbors and other people around them, because they've been affected by the Creator's love. They actually want to share that. And the enemy doesn't want that spreading, because that's literally what they were killing Christians for a couple centuries after Jesus. But real quick, Romans chapter 1, this is actually talking about what you're talking about, Alex, and it's answering Rose's question, because I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this whole from 18 down to the rest of the chapter, it's talking about people that know there's a creator, but they intentionally ignore him because they know there's a creator. And he goes on to say in chapter 2, and I'm going to read some of this right here, and we'll go down here. In chapter 2, he says, but because of your stubbornness and unrepentant heart, you're storing up wrath for yourself in the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render each person according to his deeds. This is actually Deuteronomy 7:11, where it says, those who hate God will have to face him. Which is a huge statement. It says, verse 7, to those who by perseverance in doing good are seeking for glory and honor and immortality, which is eternal life. That's the promise of the covenant in Leviticus 18:4 and 5, that God says, if you practice my behaviors, I will resurrect you and give you eternal life. So this is the most basic fundamental idea of believing in a creator and his promise to us. But verse 8 says, but to those who are selfishly ambitious and do not obey the truth, but instead they obey unrighteousness, they're going to receive wrath and indignation. There will be tribulation and distress for every soul of man who does evil, for the Jew first and also the Greek, but glory and honor and peace to everyone who does good, to the Jew first and also the Greek. There is no partiality with God, for all who've sinned have sinned without the law, will also perish without the law. All who sinned under the law will be judged by the law. For it's not the hearers of the law who are just before God, but the doers of the law will be justified. And here's the part, Rose, to answer your question for that second category, okay? It says, for when Gentiles, just when people of the word Gentiles means people of the nations. When people of the nations who do not have the law, that's the behavior of God to practice, they've never heard it, they don't have it, and they instinctively do the things of the law, these, the nations, not having the law, are a law to themselves. And in that, they show that the work of the law is written on their hearts. So this is talking about that inner witness, what's called, your conscience, basically. And it's basically addressing the people that were not born in Israel, that never had exposure to all this stuff. They have the law already written on their hearts. Every human does. So this is why they will actually want to do what's right. They logically see things will go better if I don't murder my neighbor. So then they don't murder their neighbor and things go well, right? Things go better if I don't steal from my business associates.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They inwardly know, everyone does, because we're made in his image.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think it's social engineering that has caused people to think any differently because they're so separated from nature. And then you have these kind of certain kinds of like pastors at churches who will focus on the fear only and not on these kinds of statements like what you're reading. And so I think that's the issue right there, is people are misrepresenting the big picture.
Yeah, the big picture is everyone that's born knows right and wrong to some degree. Now we can be swayed through indoctrination, through lies, to get muddled, and how we apply what we think is, or to be redefined what people are told is right and wrong, like current Marxist philosophy that's invading politics, where they're trying to say, no, everything that it's racist to be on time, it's racist to keep a calendar, it's people in every generation are always trying to redefine what's right and wrong, even from the most basic fundamental stance, which is why they approve of killing a child in the womb, but yet the moment it's out, they suddenly say it's still murder. And of course, that's even being tested in New York, where they want to do post-birth abortions. So
yeah, but that doesn't make sense, because if a woman's pregnant, gets a car accident, hits by a drunk driver, and she's a baby in her womb, that's double homicide. Exactly. So that doesn't make sense right there.
No, that's a longstanding contradiction of double homicide with that. But what I'm getting at really simply, though, is that the most believers, right? And this is actually blends perfectly into what I was going to say about Genesis 3 with Alex, because Alex, you were talking about atheists and you're spot on, brother, because I actually dealt with this in conversation with the atheists I debated on my channel, which he said to me, he said, so what do you think it is within me that gets me not to believe God? And I said, well, it's unforgiveness. He's like, are you sure? I said, yeah, 100%. He goes, okay, you're probably right.
Unforgiveness?
He's mad at God. Something didn't go well in his life, and he in turns blamed God. There's only three people that we blame in our life. It's either ourselves, the other person, or God, the creator. And you have to forgive one of those three, or all three, depending on what trauma happened or what hurt transpired. So most atheists, and I call these, lovingly call, there's two categories of atheists. There's the angry atheist, and then there's the agnostics, who are more chilled out atheists. Yeah. So but the angry atheists, they're the ones that have a vehement bitterness in them and unforgiveness because something didn't go the way they wanted to. They blame God for that situation, and now they're just mad. It's festered and it's rooted over time.
It's usually, Sean, it's usually a love deal. It's usually they got broken up with, or they've been scorned, lover. That's and that's why a lot of people get into. It's usually substance abuse. People get clean. They're able to get into God. And then, it's just random, what opens your eyes when you have a clear heart, and when your heart's cloudy, what becomes important in your life. And I think that's a big example of it. But basically, though, one thing I want to talk about, I just want to ask you one question real quick. This is kind of off the subject. I would have thought that Mel Gibson was the biggest freak. Then they wouldn't let him in the Hangover movie, the Hangover 2 movie, after all of his stuff. And now I look back, I'm like, the guy was speaking from his heart and knew, what he was saying. So what's your opinion on Mel Gibson? And was Passion of the Christ the best Christian movie ever, like mainstream movie? Or is there actually any other mainstream Christian movie that's actually kind of good that you consider good, Sean?
Well, that's a three-part question, and the first
Yeah.
one's probably the toughest. Mel Gibson is like, I mean, he's an actor. I think he's dealing with some MK Ultra mind control trying to
For
come out.
sure.
Yeah, so he may have had an epiphany moment in his life where he started to realize truth and started to want to follow it, but then you get all this programming that starts to mess with that, as well as the intimidation and peer pressure of the industry he was in. Now,
Well, why do you think they let him make that movie?
well, supposedly they didn't. Supposedly he coughed up 30 million of his own money to make that movie. And I think as far as a Christian movie goes, the theology that was put into the writing, I don't agree with all of it because I had a lot of Catholicism put in there.
So it's bull crap. So the movie's bull crap. I watched it.
I mean, clearly the main components of the storyline about Jesus dying and resurrecting, that's true. That's in the Bible. But as far as some of the subtleties and the theology and stuff, it's a lot of Catholicism. But ultimately, like as far as the production value, probably one of the best Christian movies that was out there. I think Noah was not a Christian movie. It was more like a Gnostic propaganda piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that, and because someone said that they injected some Luciferian ideas into it, and I thought,
who is that?
That was Russell Crowe, and
I need to watch that. I might watch it tonight. Now that's why I'm asking. I'm so bored. I need to watch a movie. I'm almost sick. Rose, how are you? Because I know Rose and I and Sean. It looks like we look at the same content. Are you guys so sick of coronavirus crap? I can't hardly listen to anybody talk about anything of the virus. I
extremely.
And I don't know about y'all, but guys, I've stopped. I used to love pop culture movies and this. I don't even turn on my TV. I haven't turned on my TV in months. I mean, literally months. And so the movie theaters are closed. I used to at least go to a movie once or twice a month, occasionally once a month at least. I haven't been to a movie in 6 months. I'm done with Hollywood now. Like really officially, the coronavirus really killed my Hollywood. But I'm running out. There's plenty of good content. It's just a lot of the same stuff. And even I'm as a victim as a content creator talking about the same stuff. So how do we break free? What are we going to entertain ourselves with, guys? We need something new to happen. We need Project Bluebeam or something.
This is it. What we're doing right now is my entertainment. I don't have television. Sometimes I'll download a movie for research like Noah because people were asking me about the whole Tubal Cain idea. And in that story, I don't know if that's in the Bible, but the guy jumps on the ship, so he ends up driving.
You're still here. Keep going. You're good. You came back.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's usually for research, and also someone recommended that I see this film called Snowpiercer from 2013. But I only made it 5 minutes in. That part where she sticks the person. It was horrific. And I mean, Jason got mad at me because I left after 5 minutes because I was getting physically ill from the social engineering and the way that the people on the hierarchy were speaking at the people lower and sticking the arm in the human torture. And I only lasted 5 minutes. And I used to watch Japanese like torture movies, like when I was in my early 20s, like I was totally desensitized to violence. But then seeing the social engineering and realizing that this was kind of like the ruling elite laughing their butts off at us, it made me physically ill. But then, of course, 2 hours later, I go coming back into there and I'm like, so what happened? And he's like, well, maybe you should have, stayed and watched the movie. I'm not going to tell you. So I made my decision. I could watch it.
That was one of the strange. My wife doesn't watch a lot of movies, but that was one that she did see a long time ago, and I randomly saw it too because it has Captain America. Chris Evans is in it from Captain America, but it's about a train. The whole thing is apocalyptic. It takes place on a train. It's like supposedly the last survivors of humanity. They're stuck on this train that can't stop, and the world's like already climate changed and it's all icy everywhere. Yeah, it's like the train that's going through the day after tomorrow, right? And so then the people in the back train are the slaves that serve each progressive hierarchy of the cabins of the train leading up to the front, and the people that rule everything are on the front train, and they're eating everybody else, cannibals. So Rose, I know you didn't see the whole thing, but that's what those little jelly bars that they were having.
That's what the Snowpiercer's about. That's what it's about. Wow. So it's like the Hunger Games on a train, but cannibalistic, kind of weird mix. Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
A lot more symbolism. Well, here's what I would like. I would like you to watch Snowpiercer and Noah, and then come on to my channel and we'll discuss it.
Okay, well, I can't watch them both tonight, but I will. I need to watch. And I can't sit through a whole movie. It's going to take me 2 days to watch it. Because
I don't mean tonight. I mean, whenever you finish.
No, I 100% want to do it. But I'm just saying, you got to give me like a week or two because I'm putting this on my list. But
take a month.
I'm gonna watch them. I'm just saying the Snowpiercer's about these trains, cannibal trains, people eating each other, and the Alaska booze. And I mean, what the heck is going on in this media? How does that get made? How is that a multi-million-dollar movie? Is what blows my mind. How is there's a room of scriptwriters like, oh, we're gonna have this train, and they're gonna kill everybody. It's gonna be a real
reprogramming.
I know, but every movie you see, and that's what I look back as a kid. It's like every movie did have some sort of social agenda at the end. You know, there's always some social movement. Every Tom Hanks movie made you feel some sort of way on purpose. And now looking back at it, Rose, I'm able to see it. You know, that's why I kind of like looking back at it now, Sean, under the eyes that it's all kind of new. I'm seeing what they were trying to manipulate me with. So I don't want to give up pop culture and movies and stuff. I still want to kind of be plugged into that matrix a little bit because I've grown up loving it. Jurassic Park. When I realized dinosaurs aren't real, that blew my mind. So I'm okay. Right. Tell me about the dragons. Tell me about what is your biblical interpretation of dinosaurs, Sean?
Well, it's there. Yeah, they used to be called dragons up until the mid 1800s, and then the evolutionary Darwinistic term started getting into, and they came up with this idea of dinosaur in order to repurpose what all the cultures had already talked about, which were dragons. And this is just large lizards and reptiles. This is actually something that in the Bible, there's two creatures that are spoken about in prophecy that are crazy. And I don't know if you're ready for this, but I'm trying to ease you into some concepts. I don't just want to baptize you all at once, but basically we've done several shows on our channel about explaining all the stuff about it. So, and I'm going to tie this into what we were just talking about. Okay. You were talking about the idea of why the elites do what they do, right? Why are they making movies like Snowpiercer, where they actually tell you some of the stuff they do behind the scenes and underground? Because they, in my opinion, they kind of have to. It's like a spiritual principle. They kind of have to tell you what they're doing, and so that you, by your silence, allow it.
Acquiesce, yes. Yeah, revelation of method is what it's called.
Yeah, and so they have to kind of show you their hand, even though they're not going to tell you this directly. But the point is, they do all this stuff because of what you said earlier. This goes back to Genesis 3, and then we'll get into the dinosaurs as well. It's all the same story, so it's all connected. But basically, like these guys, they want to live forever, like you talked about, right? This is the original lie and the original promise. So let me pull this up on screen, and I'm going to show you the original lie, which was of the serpent, which was from biblical concept. And I don't have time to go into this, but biblical concept is a real serpent that's being influenced by a rebellious, disobedient angel. So just like in modern, like an unclean spirit can take over a human and talk through a human, same concept with the animals. Okay, so the scriptures tell us that every animal that was in the garden with Adam and Eve, they can actually speak before Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden. So there was communication, there was no fear. But once they get kicked out of the garden, they no longer could speak.
Wait, I have to cut you off real quick, Sean. You know what's funny when you say that? Because like when I'm about to have sex with a girl, that's a different spirit that's controlling my body, Sean. That's somebody else, because I will bend over backwards before to get laid. I'm just saying, when you say that, I know that sounds, and it's insensitive, and I don't get laid very often, but I'm a single man. I'm just saying, when I go on a date and I have to act, I have to like not tell them who I am. That's a spirit in my body. The fact you say that, I'm not kidding. I know I sound like a crazy person, but I know that sounds crazy, Rose. I'm just saying, when I'm dating girls, you can't be yourself. I believe that is some sort of.
You're dating the wrong women. You're dating the wrong women.
Yeah, no, it takes time. It takes the time to call your preference there.
Why would their act of reproduction be like a different spirit? Like that's negative. See,
it's something else. I'm just saying, I turn into a different person when my brain is.
Alex, that spirit is called testosterone, brother.
No, it's not. There's a spirit comes in my body because, and I don't. The thing is, I'm basically choosing not to date. I just got out of like a long relationship, over a 3-year relationship, and I've seen a couple girls. But like what I'm saying is, I've kind of had flings, and I will hang out with a girl I get. Not along with it all. Can't hardly stand her personality because that other demon is taking over my body because he wants the nookie. That's why he's able to put up with the crap that for the nookie. So that's a demon controlling. That's a parasitic Luciferian demon controlling the buttons, Sean. I got it. We need to. What is I'm completely surprised by the 1999 Limp Bizkit song reference.
Yes.
I love it. That's one of my favorite bands. Are you kidding, dude? Fred Durst, dude. I did it all for the nookie. Yeah, the nookie. Yeah, so you can get the cookie.
Well, I would
more social engineering.
Of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sean, my favorite band growing up was 3-6 Mafia and Project Pat, Chickenhead, 666 Mafia. I would listen to it every day with my subwoofers. And my first thing I bought when I was like 15 for my first job was subwoofers so I could listen to 3-6 Mafia. Like I was literally worshiping the devil as a 14 and 15-year-old kid and had no idea. 666, 666, 666, 666, like just literally yelling and worshiping the devil in my bedroom as a white kid in Dallas, Texas, summoning evil spirits, all because there's the Luciferian devils that were getting a kick out of social engineering white kids to worship the devil unknowingly.
Well, isn't it great to be on the other side of that, and you've come through to a little more mature state? You realize now what the truth is. Well, you're on your way. You're on your way, brother. So here's the where it all began, actually, because the people that want to live forever, this is the original lie, and it says here in Genesis 3, verse 2, the woman said to the serpent, from the fruit of the trees of the garden we can eat, but the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God said, you shall not eat from it or touch it, or you'll die. And the serpent said to the woman, you surely will not die. For God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Now, this word God right here in this text is not the word for the Almighty. It's the word Elohim. Now, poor translators will capitalize it through their own bias, but in the actual Hebrew, if we go into this, we'll just do it real quick because I got a quick computer.
Wait, so God's in the Bible capitalized and not capitalized?
That's right. So this is a Hebrew word that has a multi-purpose use, and the translator decides if he wants to capitalize it because translations are based upon their understanding of the context of what they're translating. There's two types of translations. It's anyone, you and I, we could pick up a Greek lexicon and translate English words into Greek word for word. It doesn't mean it would make sense in a sentence. That's where good translators come in, where they actually know what it means when they put the sentence together according to the context of the story. So many times you see this kind of stuff that trips people up, even Christians, trips them up in scripture where there's something capitalized and they think, oh, it must be talking about the creator. But this word right here, if we go into its actual definition, it can be talking about more than just the creator. We'll go to its Strong's definition. And it's God or little g gods, which is a divine being, or little g gods, rulers, the mighty ones, the great, the judges. So this can be speaking not just about the creator himself, but also about the angelic class. So when this serpent comes up to Eve and says, oh, don't believe what God said, you're not going to die. In fact, he knows that your eyes will be open and you'll be like Elohim. You'll be like the angels. You'll be like someone who's eternal. Not specifically like the creator, because no one can be like him. Because it all flows downward. You can't be greater than what created you.
Is that why people refer to him as the Most High?
Exactly. Well, that's also a directional reference because he's literally on the top level of the firmament. But because he's literally most high above everything.
Well, but Sean, I think it proves it that we're basically devolving. We are copies of copies of copies, like the old CDRs we used to do on our computer when we had a CD burner of God's creation from the top. So, God created Adam and Eve and we came from them. So we've been making copies of copies of copies. So we're like those memes you see on the internet that are digitized. And you're like, how does a digitized meme lose its quality? But through the screenshots, it does. And that's just like us. It's like slowly but surely through the screenshots of our, fornication of each other, we are getting farther and farther away. We're devolving from God's creation, in my opinion, because are we going to talk about the book of Enoch and Nephilims and, the people that basically created our race or created us as people? I think we're God's creation, or I know that we're God's creation.
Well, what you're looking at right here is the actual word that ends up being used for. You see that it says goddesses, godly, gods. You see even says shrine down here. This is a word that we see later in the Old Testament used for the literal idols, which were representations of these unclean spirits, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. So this is a word because they were considered better than the average person because they were supposedly, half man and half angelic being. So that you're kind of getting further into the storyline, but this whole concept right here is telling this word is used in a variety of applications in Scripture in the Hebrew, and you just have to look at the context to see what's going on. So the point being, this same lie.
Sorry, wouldn't they have to be badass if they were as tall as Noah's boat? I mean, shit. I mean, well, obviously,
think about you remember the great story of David and Goliath, right? He was supposedly was about 13 feet tall in that story. David was just a normal, actually he was a 14-year-old boy. So who knows how tall he was. But David had a sniper rifle with him. Those old school slingshots could throw a rock at 200 miles an hour. So we had 5, but the point is he just used 1. And that's because the guy, even though he was 13 feet tall, he still killed with a bullet to the brain. So like they may have looked imposing, but they were still able to be killed. And that's why they were eventually killed and scattered off by lots of people, not just the Israelites. Other people fought them as well throughout history. And that's actually recorded in history, but that's a much bigger show. The point is because they claimed ancestry to the angels that birthed them before the flood, they claimed to be gods as well. And so they would claim to be, this word sometimes would have been used of them as well, depending on if it's talking about the idols that represented them, basically. So the point is, this is why false religions and the occult strives to live forever, because the people they worship were created, the Nephilim, and I'm going to take this off screen real quick. The Nephilim were created as when the rebellious angels, and there was only 200 of them, they came down in the days of Jared, which is in the a few generations before Enoch. This is approximately 12 to 1500 years before the flood. And they basically decided they were sent here intentionally to help mankind govern, and because mankind was starting to flourish. But when they got here, they saw women and they became attracted. And so then they had their own lust that took over, because according to scripture, all angels are male. There are no female angels in heaven. So they were all created male, and that they came down and they were exposed to some women for a little bit, and some of them made some bad choices. So then they took these women. And so what I'm trying, lovingly, I'll say this. You're joking about how a spirit comes over you, get attracted to a woman, and you're looking to get that nookie. But the angels that came down, there weren't any unclean spirits back then, and they still did that behavior. It's all a choice, brother. It's all a choice. You can do it. You can overcome.
Excuse for it. I'm just saying, it's when you said a spirit takes you over, I'm like, God. And I haven't been on a date. I haven't been dating that much, but I'm just telling you, because I can't not talk about truth. But when you're dating, that's the only time I won't be myself. Is when you date. At first, the first, because you kind of have to be yourself, and that's because you kind of want to. You want to get laid, or you want to eventually get laid. You know what I mean? Regardless of whether you start dating or not, if you're sexually attracted to the person, you want that to happen. I believe the person that makes you a loser, not yourself, that's like the evil demon telling you, try to make her like you.
It's definitely part of your calculations as men, right? You gotta factor in that chemistry. But ultimately, the elite are trying. They do believe the lie. They've been trained in this lie that they can live forever, which is why they do the adrenochrome. They do the occultic rituals of drinking blood. They want the younger and more pure blood, the better, because they have believed what's been told to them. The same type of rituals, like we mentioned on your podcast on Labor Day, they're actually being told to us in the Old Testament, don't do this stuff, because this was what all the nations that worship these little g gods, these idols, the unclean spirits, that's where they learned these rituals. And because they're being sold this lie that they will get immortality, and now it's being a technocracy is being infusing that lie through transhumanism in our modern era. But that's the same lie. It's just reincarnated it, or repackaged, rebranded, if you will. But it's the same concept, because they think they're going to be able to live forever, because the promise of the Bible is you don't live forever. You're born of flesh. You're born of dirt, so to speak, between God's spirit coming into dirt and making you reality. Whereas the angels were born of water. And that's how they have a body that literally can live forever, because water cannot be destroyed. But the soil, the flesh, can. So this is why we need the resurrection. This is what the promise of the covenant is that God says, if you practice my behavior, it shows me that you want it. It shows me that you want to be with me forever. And I promise you, through my son's priesthood, I will raise you to eternal life and give you this body. This is Luke 20:36, which is like the angels, and you will be able to live forever. But the occult, they don't want to go this route because they hate God. So they want to try to manufacture this thing for themselves. This is why they're always trying to push the sciences and push all the things all the different 5 major sciences that blend into transhumanism. This is why it's such a big push for them, because they truly believe they've drank the Kool-Aid, the same Kool-Aid that they propagate, which is they think they can live forever.
Well, hey, what's the psyop behind Walt Disney freezing himself to in case they figure out that they have a technology to bring him back to life? Like, everybody knows that theory, and nobody even bats an eye about that theory.
Right.
What do you think about that?
He's playing the long game.
Yeah.
It's like that's nothing. That's like a modern version of the pharaohs who entomb themselves, and so they would embalm themselves, hoping that they could have reincarnation later. Did you guys know that Anubis, the god of death in ancient Egypt, was supposedly he was so good at reincarnating people, or I should say resurrecting people, that supposedly he got in trouble and was told to stop by some of the other quote unquote Nephilim, little g gods. This is according to Egyptian literature. So because he was messing up the balance as far as what was going on in the underworld. But I mean, that's Egyptian literature. There's it's hard to validate anything within that. But the point is Anubis and Apollyon, his counterpart, also called Isis or Osiris, they're spoken about in the scriptures as well, in the Hebrew scriptures. And so supposedly, Osiris, who's also called Apollyon by the Greeks, he's also called Baal. He's also called Ninurta. He's called many things, but he's the Shiva character in ancient India. He's the one that's prophesied in Revelation 9 to return for 42 months and start warring against the nations, and all the kings of the earth put their allegiance towards him. So he's the one that they're actually worshiping at the Freemasonic temples at the high 33rd degree levels.
It's Baal.
Yeah, Baal to the Canaanites, but to the Greeks, he was called Apollyon. And that's actually the word that's used and explained in the book of Revelation. This Apollyon character comes back and the world wonders after him because they've always been worshiping this whole time. All the Masonic religions and the sisters of, I can't remember the name right now. What are they called? The sisters of the star, the Eastern Star, or something like that.
The girls' version of the Masons. Sisters, or something like that. I can't think. I thought it was Lucifer is who they worship, but I guess right now, I know they have a different occultic figures from.
Well, that's where Lucifer is the name that people get from the Latin transliteration from the 4th century in Isaiah 14. Oh. But the whole context is talking about.
How is that different than Nimrod? Is Nimrod a different one?
Nimrod is the Hebrew word for the word that gets transliterated into Amraphel and also Ashurus, which is Osiris in the Greek transliteration of the Egyptian.
Different translations because God gave them 70 different languages at the Tower of Babel. Is that why there's so many different translations of the same thing?
Yes, yeah. It's just basically as you try to say it in a different language, it comes out phonetically different. So like Ashur to the ancient Egyptians becomes Osiris to the Greeks.
I see. Yeah.
Sean, how does the myth of Prometheus tie into the whole Luciferian idea? Is that a separate thing, like a metaphorical Greek idea, or is Prometheus somehow tied into biblical scripture as well?
Yeah, and connect Greek mythology to scripture a little bit. I know that's a huge connection, but I'm really interested in that because they all worship all that Greek mythology crap.
Yeah, well, I just mentioned Apollyon, so he's definitely way up there in the Greek mythology pantheon of gods and demigods, and that's the character that supposedly is going to be the only one that's destined to come back and be resurrected of all the families of gods of Nephilim from the ancient Greeks. Now, Prometheus specifically, the guy who stole fire and got in trouble, and there's a lot of Greek stories and myths and legends. Not all of them have a direct correlation to the Bible. So I'm just mentioning what specifically.
Do something weird? Supposedly create women as a punishment to men.
Yeah, that wouldn't be biblical at all. That would be that sounds like a very embittered.
Anti.
Yeah.
I don't know where I heard that.
It sounds like a dude that got turned down for too many dates.
Well, unfortunately, because of social engineering and because of hypergamy and entitlement issues, there is an overwhelming majority of women that would lead men to believe that we are here to drive you freaking crazy. But if everyone was harnessing our true nature, we would understand that men and women are different. And that's a good thing, and that we come together to form this perfect marriage of different attributes, and that I would empower you to be your best person, and you would empower me to be my best person, and together we move through this experience of hardship and necessity together as a team, rather than constantly butting heads and driving people crazy to the point where you die an early death, like a heart attack, which is happening too often in the society.
So when everything was created in Genesis 1 and 2, after everything that was created, God said it's good, except for when he created Adam by himself. And then he said, this is not good. And then he created Eve. And then it was good. So right from the beginning, the complement was the woman and the man together was good. By themselves, it's not good. So this is any religion that tells you that a woman is a burden or is a curse, that's false. That's not biblical. And usually demonic religions or false religions that create destruction always attack the women first, just like we saw in Genesis 3. Did the serpent, did the angel that was influencing the serpent, did he go after Adam or did he go after Eve first? No, he went after Eve first. So it's the I don't know why, I can't tell you why, but that's the pattern I've seen, is that they always attack women, or the enemy, I should say, always wants to subjugate, oppress, and hurt women first. This is why it's man's responsibility to protect her and try to be a good complement to her, because that's the biblical hierarchy that was given, which was that man's supposed to lead, the woman's the complement. Together, they're a great team. Apart, there's problems. But also together, the men are always supposed to look out for the women. You talked about biblical Christianity, or just the Bible in general, being lame, and how people try to like smear it.
It's lame. I just said that's how they try to skew the Bible.
Yes, how common perception, or like, people that try to smear the Bible, they want to make it sound outdated. Yes. They want to make it sound antiquated or lame. And what we're talking about with women, as far as how women are treated in the Bible, that's one. I've heard very liberal seminaries teach young pastors that the Bible was sexist, and it hurt my heart and blew my mind at the same time. I was like, what are you, crazy? Have you read the Bible? Because there's in the law, in the Old Testament law, there's all these places where it actually affords great accommodations for protection financially, and just respect and the facilitization towards a woman.
The word he is used more than she. That's how they would say. They would break it down to the stupidest ancillary reason why it's sexist.
A lot of it is built upon a feminist agenda and a feminist mentality that's crept into our culture for the last 60 years, which tries to say that a woman that lives with their parents until she marries, and then she goes and leaves her parents and goes into the husband's household, and she's financially taken care of at every level, they think that's sexist.
No, I mean, it's ridiculous.
They would rather a woman leave the house at 18 and have to work 3 jobs and fend for herself and be alone and isolated and have to have roommates and be around all these strange conditions and situations potentially dangerous.
I wish I could do that.
The feminist movement is kind of a scam to steal these women's best years. They really want to. It is
evil. Feminism is evil. It's all social engineering that started in the 60s to break apart the family unit with the, bringing in Planned Parenthood and all these things. And I grew up, and it's obviously because of television. It's obviously because of characters that I was trying to mimic. It was obviously because I was trying to emulate whoever I thought was cool. I can't even remember at this point. But my biggest concern was, please, I've got to get straight A's so that I can get a job and support myself, because I don't want to be a loser that's like feeding off of other people. My main concern was trying to figure out how I could enter the corporate world as soon as possible. It's sad. I wasted a lot of time.
As soon as possible. You got to get a job ASAP. Get your resume ready. Get your internships at 14,
build up my
12.
credit.
Yeah, get that
mortgage.
Take college classes. You're in a hurry. If you don't get this, you won't be able to pay. I mean, it's this hurry mentality. And it's like, man, you have so much life ahead of you.
Never once thought of having kids. Never once thought of having kids.
There's no thought in planning and figuring out who you are and developing yourself and your personality, so you be ready for a mate, so that you can actually be prepared to be a good husband or a good wife when the time comes and you try to have a family and kids. So then that's why there's so much quick divorce. People get together and they get married through 3 months of drunkenness, and then suddenly they haven't worked on themselves, much less known how to have a relationship. They don't know the 5 love languages. They don't know how to forgive each other. They don't know any of this stuff. So then they get divorced in 18 months, and they're on their 3rd marriage by the time they're 40. So it's a blight on our community and our societies. But I mean, I know I'm sounding very traditional right now, but like, as someone that has been divorced because I made all those mistakes, I'm not just talking out my butt right now. You know what I'm saying?
And look where we are today.
I respect that. I respect a man that knows, learns from experience, because the relationship experience is actually the stuff you can learn the most from. For whatever reason, relationship trauma, you learn the most, and you get to almost, it can actually almost be good, because you work on yourself, because when you get out of a relationship and that person that you love so much becomes a non-playable character, the only one character you can control is yourself. And so a lot of times either people go into like self-hate, or people go into self-improvement. I think the people that go into self-improvement have a motivation and goal, and usually actually do improve their lives. Yeah. Hey, but I have a question. Forget about dating. What do you think about, because you're woke to all this, Sean, what do you think about Sega Genesis backwards as Ages of Genesis? And that was, video games were created to usher in the new satanic new world order, one world order. What do you think about video games?
I definitely think video games of today are incredibly and indoctrinating kids with not just constant warfare, but all the agendas in the games. Speaking of ancient Greeks, have you ever seen some of these games where they have these ideals and these ancient? I mean, I can't remember which one it is.
Greek stuff's everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere.
But it's being actually put into the games. Like, I mean, you've got the what is it? God of War, right? You've got Kratos or whatever his name is.
I don't even play
huge game for kids, and he's literally a Greek god that goes around and fights other Greek gods. So, like, this is it's all in the games, indoctrinating them towards this mindset of hero worship, which is a part of the Nephilim worship, was that they had more powers than you. This is where the comic books come in with the X-Men and all the superhero stuff. They had more power than you. They could save you, but they had fights amongst themselves. This is just ancient Greek mythology repackaged for our generation today. So we see the same thing being implemented in all the video games as well. I couldn't play a lot of Sega Genesis because I tried playing Sonic and I started getting like mini seizures.
Yeah, I didn't like Sonic either.
Yeah, that was a bad one. They had to fix all the lighting in the original versions, but I had more.
Oh, you really did get little seizures from it. You're not kidding.
No, I'm not joking. Yeah, there was the first few versions of Sega Genesis.
I heard that.
Yeah, but once I got Mortal Kombat and I had the blood code I could put in, then it was over from there. Then I was just because I was in martial arts all my life. So
him spinning because you're spinning so fast, the blinking from the spinning would cause you to like. You actually got a seizure from that.
I would start getting the symptoms of a seizure coming on, and so this is where I talked to my parents about it. And we had to stop playing it because they found out or looked up an article or something about it, and they heard that this was a common thing that was happening with the Sega Genesis.
Do you think you could have been injured by vaccines, Sean?
Oh, I am injured by vaccines. You see this?
What?
Yeah, this happened when I was 4, and the right upper half of my torso and my arm, I was paralyzed for a week.
Oh my God, Sean. See, I consider myself a vaccine injured too, because my junior year, I got a vaccine during the football season. I got mono. That's what they diagnosed me as, mono. But I had a girlfriend at the time. We made out the whole time and she didn't get mono. So I had some like geoengineered flu that they couldn't even test for. I had like the coronavirus back then in 2009,
The pre-Rona.
That's what I'm saying. And my throat got so swollen. My lymph nodes, it looked like I had golf balls in my neck. So that's why when I know there's real respiratory illnesses, guys. We know what's going on. Some people get SARS, some people get MERS, but the numbers they give us are all fake. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, so it just sucks because all they got to do is take one person. They get, maybe the real 1,000 people in America that die from SARS somehow turns into the 9,000 real deaths. And then they get the 94% of deaths that all had pre-comorbidities. So they call that COVID. It's so easy to inflate to 180,000 deaths when it's really probably 1,000 deaths from the flu.
So what you're talking about, here's the trick that they do when it comes to the news media and the propaganda and the indoctrination and forcing new policy as a result, is they put out all the fear tactics in the first few months. And then as you're seeing now, they start scaling things back. But they're not going to highlight those. They'll put it out there, and they hope that it doesn't catch virality. But they're not going to highlight it and repeat it every 10 minutes on Fox and CNN and NBC, because they've already put out all the fear porn that they've repeated for 7 months. So now they don't have to worry about, even when they retract and contradict themselves, they've already got everyone scared. It doesn't matter, So it's like they can say it's all just the flu at this point, and no one's going to believe it.
I believe it's a problem, reaction, solution. They had the solution in mind, so they got to create the flu virus, the problem, to create the certain reaction for us to accept it. I mean, it's the same playbook. And like if you see in years past, they had the bird flu, they had Zika, they've had all these fake flus. This is just the one that they were able to go global with it. The freaking globalists were like, and I'm not saying global because we live on a globe, we live on a flat stationary plane. I'm just, for that lack of a better vocabulary, that. This is what they're trying to do, because they're trying to 9/11. Speaking of RIP, we're about to be, it's about to be 9/11 here in about 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So about 9/11. 9/11 was our indoctrination into the new world order. That was into the new police state, where the Patriot Act, where they literally gave away our rights. That without a warrant, they could search our emails and phones. But what's going on now is now the indoctrination to the one world order. So what do you guys think about that? Now they're trying to hook us up to the social credit system. Every story doesn't have change. There are change shortages. All this, somehow the flu caused change to die. I mean, that's the only thing the coronavirus killed, is the change in America.
Speaking of the currency and the new /one world order, here we have it right here. Let me go to it. This is the statues in front of the IRS building in Maryland. So not only do you have a pyramid, but you have the two hands of what you were talking about. You have your problem and solution.
Yakin and
And
Boaz.
No,
yeah.
that's what those are. That's what those symbolize: problem and solution.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me bring it back up. Yeah. So basically, they're going to get you between both hands. But yeah, like this is in front of the IRS in Maryland, guys. This is the artwork out front.
I mean, who?
Yeah. It's revelation of method. And the thing about revelation of method is that when they shove this stuff in front of everybody's face and then people still don't fight back and don't do anything about it, they say, okay, well, we showed them this is their tacit consent. And so we're allowed to do whatever we want to them because they're too stupid and too scared and too dumbed down and they don't have the element of care to do anything about it. We showed them, but they don't care. So we don't care. We're going to do whatever we want to them. That is what is occurring in this physical realm at this time.
That blows my mind. That's the IRS building. That blows my mind. That problem solution, and then the reactions, the pyramid or whatever. I mean, whatever it's supposed to symbolize Saturn.
Yeah. You guys, I'm sure y'all have seen all the breakdowns about the dollar bill, and there's the
I've seen a lot
the
of
13
that,
steps. You got the 13 stars on the shield, the 13 arrows, the 13 budded branches. Like, yeah, it's all crazy. It's been told to us this whole time, which is the crazy part. I think they're, it's kind of like when they say, oh, by the way, Pentagon's missing $1 trillion. No
one does anything about it.
2001, September 10th. This is the anniversary of the first time the Pentagon announced they were missing $2 trillion.
2.6 trillion.
Why don't we talk about that on September 10th? Yeah.
Oh my. And it's just when you try to talk to people about it, like I try to talk to my dad about it, and he's just like, oh, there must be some logical, oh, well, things happen. It's like, what if I took $5 out of your wallet and just said, oh, things happen? Things don't just happen. Like, there's got to be a cause and effect for everything, but people just ignore. And that's why we should all pronounce the word ignorance, ignorance.
Yeah. It's the cognitive dissonance. Well, what do you think? We have to be in, you have to believe we're in Revelation, Sean, don't you? But what would you say the time frame is right now? And just your estimation. I know you don't know. So, I'm just saying, brainstorming, what do you think is the timeline that we're currently living under right now?
Well, if I could quickly break down the book of Revelation's 22 chapters, the first 3 chapters are actually transpiring in the first century because they're actual letters to churches that were in the first century. But where the actual prophecy of the future picks up is chapter 4. And because of all the time qualifiers, I actually don't think that we're literally in that book yet. I think, yes, we're heading to it.
I kind of think that we're definitely heading to it, but in my mind, I feel like we're not there yet. I don't know why, because they say the mark of the beast. I just, for some reason, I think when they try to do this vaccine, Sean, a lot of people are going to wake up and say, this is bullcrap. I'm not going to do it. I just believe that all these people, that this is going to backfire, having all these housewives, all these Q wives on the computer for the past 6 months. They're realizing that these vaccines aren't good. Your vaccine, I'm just saying, they're hearing. You never hear a story like, oh, I wish I would have got my kid vaccinated. You never hear the flip side of story that, oh, I wish he would have got it. So that's how you know that what's going on is they're going to wake up to this truth. And I think they're in for, I'm not some Q guy, but I think we really are in for a mass awakening, and that the revelation may not be able to come yet, because I don't think that we are going to be in revelation yet until we accept the one world government. You see what I'm saying? Until we have one ruler or one.
Well, this is what I was talking about earlier about that Polyon character that says he comes up for 42 months. Revelation 13 says that he's literally rolling in the authority of Satan, and so that he's considered the first beast, and he has his little henchman, the second beast, and they together, the kings of the earth, the people that are actively ruling the world today, that's mentioned in the book of First Enoch and also in Revelation 16 and 18, they give their allegiance to this guy so he can go out and try to conquer the nations that resist him. So not all nations are going to follow after him. There will be, that's why there's warfare. This is a part of the first seal, which is one of the 4 horsemen, as he goes out to make war against the world. I don't think we're there yet. I really don't. And he only is given 42 months to do this. And at the end of that 42 months, Yeshua returns with a bunch of angels through the firmament and kicks his butt. As Malachi chapter 3, verse 14 says, he fillets him open from neck to thigh. So there's going to be a lot going on leading up to that. I just don't think we're there yet. But the book of Baruch,
there's a lot going on now.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, think about how when a lot of these wars that we can remember in our lifetime, when they first started, think about how many countries did not have central banks and did not engage in usury. Now, look at how many countries have central banks now. Well, most of them do. There's only a few places. So I think that might have to do with the acquisition of trying to, the whole imperial idea of this
I
of this
think it's only North
character.
Korea and Iraq are the only ones that don't have a Rockefeller centralized bank. I think.
Wow. Yeah. I
Did you
haven't
say North Korea and Iraq?
I think they're the only two because it was the 7 Middle Eastern countries that we've destabilized since, like Libya got one, Syria I think has one now, Benghazi, I guess that was in whatever that place has them. They all have them. I think it's just Iraq and North Korea. From what
Does Syria have any buildings standing so they can have a bank?
I don't know. Who knows? But the bank didn't even have to be there because it's just their banking system. I guess it's
Right.
just what they loan money to or from.
Yeah, it's crazy. I try to tell people about how the Federal Reserve is not part of the government or the Constitution. It's actually on an island off the states. And you just see like their face go, what? Wait, what? And you're just like, you guys realize that it's voluntary. Like it's not even a law. Like we pay it because it's under threat and intimidation. And it's pay these federal taxes. And it was instituted, like we tried to resist it for like 10 years.
John. They don't care. They don't know. They're too worried about their light bill. They're too worried about keeping up with the Kardashians being over. Hey, well, what do you think about Pizzagate, Sean?
What do I think about it? I think that it's 100%. That's just a small, that's a window dressing of the bigger network that's going on across the world.
Well, I guess this is my question. What do you think about satanic ritual abuse, like Jimmy Savile and all those? I don't know how often you talk about that, but like satanic ritual abuse is a real thing. And I believe a lot of these missing children go missing in order to be used for satanic ritual abuse. What do you think about that in Hollywood? Like it was in that show True Detective. I'm just saying, what do you think about SRA, satanic ritual abuse?
Oh yeah, it's happening all the time. It's happening, and this is like Jeranism talked about on his expose did. I think it was in 2017, where he actually talked about that school where the city police were in on it, the teachers were in on it, and they were letting these kids leave school and then go get abused and come back and give them back to their parents at 3:00 every afternoon. And this was happening for years. And he uncovered it in this small town. Everyone was in on it because they're all a part of these secret societies, and they've been sold the Kool-Aid because they get involved in these rituals and they get bonded into it. And it's all based on fear, like they'll kill you if you try to get out. So they keep propagating the breaking of these young children to indoctrinate the next generation and keep it that perpetuated cycle. So it's been happening all over the world. In fact, let me go to a verse real quick, okay? And this is because I'm the Bible guy, so I got to bring this up. But basically, this is something that is known by the Creator, and He is going to deal with this in the future. So let me go to this real quick. Not only in Revelation 18 does He talk about it, but He also talks about it in the Old Testament too. And He says, let me put this on screen. All right, so here in Zephaniah 3. I'm going too fast. Hang on a second, guys. 1 second. Oh, I'm sorry. It's in Joel 3. I apologize. So basically, this is the Creator telling these people who were selling children that He knows what they're doing, and they're going to pay for this. So He says, I will gather the nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. That's the valley of Armageddon in the Greek in the New Testament. Then I will enter into judgment with them there, meaning He's going to fight them on behalf of my people and my inheritance, Israel. And that's anyone across the world, not literally blood-born Israel, but according to the covenant, anyone from any nation who in faith and belief wants to be like the Creator and follows Him in faith and belief, you become a part of the covenant in Israel. Are you guys even able to see this on screen? I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see your screen. I was just listening to you talk.
All right. So basically he's saying, I will enter into judgment with them there, whom they've scattered, or on behalf of my people and my inheritance, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land. They've also cast lots for my people, and they traded a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they may drink.
So it's a boy for harlot. That's a whore, basically.
So basically, at these, not just in modern times, but in ancient times, they would use men and women for female and male prostitutes at these temples, and this is part of the pagan cultic rituals. Now, this can't be done out in the open anymore, so that's why it's all trafficking and underground now.
Wow.
Because this is the Father, this is the Creator. He knows everything that's happening. None's getting by Him. So these people will pay for what they're going to do, what they've been doing. It also talks about this in Revelation chapter 18.
Maybe that's why they want to live forever, because they're so afraid of what will happen when they die, when they're going to be judged.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Well, you know they're evil. Look at Jerry Falwell. You see how just spiraling Jerry Falwell is right now, Sean? And that's because he grew up in that fake. Those aren't real Christians. When you're like a Creflo Dollar, for-profit preacher like that, you don't really believe in God. Those guys are so disconnected to God. So he probably does some sort of weird sexual stuff like that.
Well, I don't want to slander anybody, so I don't know his life or I don't know him. But I mean, who knows? I don't know. But all I know is that when the Messiah, the Son of the Creator, returns and he comes back with a whole bunch of angels to literally do some fighting, and they're going to have to fight the armies of the earth that gather together to try to fight him at his coming. This is part of the people of the merchants of the earth that were engaging in these practices for wealth and profiteering. And part of that is cinnamon, spice, incense, perfume, frankincense, wine, oil, olive oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, cargoes of horses, chariots, and slaves and human lives. This has been going on forever. And this is still happening, just like we know it is happening today, but it's still happening when he returns. And this is what he stops. All this chapter right here is explaining Mother Babylon, which is a system over the entire earth that came back from the Tower of Babylon. That's kind of when it originated. But this is Mother Babylon, and she says in her heart that she sits as a queen and she's a widow. She'll never see mourning. But God's promising that she's going to be burned with fire, and he's going to give her twice a portion of judgment. She will be dealt with, basically, is what he's saying. And these people, and this is where we go to the book of Enoch, chapter 62 and 63, where the kings of the earth, who are part of this Mother Babylon system over the whole earth, the kings of the earth actually stand before the Messiah, and they actually are pleading for mercy. And he's like, no, it's too late. No mercy for you. So it's like, they know what they're doing. This is willful evil.
Well, Sean, that's why Aleister Crowley, he's obsessed with Babylon. He used to have the Babylon cult, so that makes sense. So explain Babylon again.
Babel, the word, of course, comes from the land of Shinar. A couple hundred years after the flood, all the nations get together because they all spoke one language still, according to the Bible, and they started doing this construction project. According to the Book of Jubilees, it took about 40 to 41 years to build this massive tower because they literally knew the creation model, and they wanted to get through the layer of the firmament above us so they could fight God, so they could take over.
Kill God. Basically, because
they thought, well, if he's living up there on the other layers above us in this big creation house, imagine like a 7-story house. That's what the Bible describes. And we live on the bottom level, and there's 6 levels above us where the angels and God live. And so we're kind of like and then the basement is what's called Sheol, where people go to. I've seen
that model a million times.
Yeah. So like this is, we live on the base level, and then the people in Tower of Babel, they were like, well, they were, the great grandsons of Noah, right? So they knew the story of the flood. And by the way, the flood only works in an enclosed system. So, this they knew. They were like, all right, well, we don't. They thought we're just going to build this tower. Literally, we're going to build a staircase to heaven. I'm not trying to be too pop culture, but that's literally what they were trying to. They wanted. They wanted to be able to get through the firmament so they could actually stop judgment, right? Because if they take out the judge, you can do whatever you want. But basically, they want to get through the firmament, take out God, fight God, get rid of that. So, but that means they have to get through the firmament, and that's where the deception comes in, because they cannot get through the firmament in their mortal bodies. They have to have a different body with different chemistry, because everything above it, it's not like the same place where we live down. This whole atmosphere, everything that we absorb and breathe, it's
same. Yeah.
They're made for us.
The beings that are made above the firmament, according to the Bible, the angelic beings, they're all made of water and spirit. And we're made of soil of the earth and spirit, and the God's spirit in us.
So we're dirt, spirit, they're water and spirit. That's why we're different.
Yeah. That's why we can't go. That's why Jesus says in John 3:13, he says that no man has ascended above the firmament except for he who came back down. That Yeshua comes down, but no man before him has ever gone past the firmament, which was a big deal, because that's what people have been trying to do with the Tower of Babel. And I think that's what they're trying to do with the secret programs in NASA, is they literally think that they can somehow penetrate, find a way through. The Book of Enoch talks about actual portals, which is translated as doors. Genesis 7.
Down. Enoch actually talks about like how they say there's the holes in the Van Allen radiation belt. You're telling me the Book of Enoch describes something kind of not the same, but there's holes in this firmament. Go back. I want to hear that.
Well, sure. I mean, do you remember in Genesis 7? Here, I'll pull it up on the screen. So here in Genesis, because I'm the firmamentalist guy, so I know about the
I
firmament.
love the firmamentalist. I see. For me, is Sean. I think the firmament's really important because it was kind of hard for me to understand that. But then you realize we can't have gas pressure next to a vacuum without a physical
Right.
barrier, and the thing. And then once you realize, like I said, Werner von Braun, the firmament's mentioned so much in the Bible that it has to be real. There has to be something. What it is, I don't know, but it being there, yes, I do know.
Right. Yeah, this is right here in Genesis 7:11 is the 600 year of Noah's life in the second month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up and the windows of heaven. That word heaven is the word given to the structure of the firmament. So every time you see the word heaven in scripture, it's talking about the firmament. And it says the windows of heaven were opened. So imagine this is how the flood happened. It bubbled up from below, from the springs of the deep, and it flooded down from literally doorways, windows being opened up in the dome above us, and water flowing down. Where did that water come from? Was that
floodgates? They opened the floodgates.
Exactly. That's why some translations call them floodgates. But here in chapter 1 of Genesis, we actually get the story of where that water even came from, which is right here, 2-8. This is the earth was formless and void. So remember that 7-story house we talked about? And remember the bottom layers where we live? But before the layer where we live was formed out and made everything we see, it was just a big container of water, like a big aquarium with some dirt at the bottom. And then this is where it says the spirit of the earth was formless and void, darkness over the face of the deep. The spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day. The darkness he called night. There's evening and morning in one day. Then God said, let an expanse, and that word is a Greek transliteration. In the Hebrew, it's the rakia, which translates to the firmament. This is just a particular translation. Other translations directly say firmament. But it's the same word, the expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. So now we've got, imagine a container of water like an aquarium, and you put a bowl down in it. There's going to be waters under the bowl, and there's still waters above and around the bowl. So this is where the water came from during the flood.
Well, I think when we look at a star, we know there's some sort of liquid above us because this thing is flashing. I mean, it looks like you're looking at it through liquid when you look at a telescope, looking at a star through a telescope. The footage that I've...
Yes, I think we're looking through water at objects, at points of light coming through that water. In fact,
Crow 777, the lunar wave. I mean, she's done more than anybody.
Yeah, and that's also getting into the sun and the moon and which levels of the firmament they're in. I think I talked about that with Rose when she came on, but that's actually explains the eclipse perfectly and everything. I know that David Weiss has a little bit different explanation. His could be right, but from the biblical description, it seems that they're in separate layers of the firmament, and the moon's closer, the sun's behind it. But the point is, here in Psalm 148:4, so this is
the Bible describes it as being close to the same height, but not the exact same height.
Yeah, from what we can surmise, it seems like if there's different levels to the firmament, that the sun is either in the second or the third level, and the moon is in front of it in those levels, and possibly in the water above, which is why it's not an actual object, but it's a plasma creation from the electricity moving through the water and above. And this goes into multiple different verses, but in the book of Enoch as well. So because it's
closer than the sun to us, correct, right?
Yeah, and yes, both in the biblical and the helio model, the moon's closer than the sun. Yeah,
well, I know. I'm just saying, from my senses, though, the moon feels closer than the sun. So that's why, even though I think they're close to the same height, I always will say the moon's closer, because when I look at it, I can just see how clear those craters are in the sun without a telescope. And I look at the sun too. Like, I'll look at the sun, I'll close my eyes where it's little slits, so as little light as possible, and you can see it because your eyes aren't getting burnt by it. And they're not the same spot. They're close, but they're not the same, in my opinion.
I agree with you. Yeah. And so this is the psalmist who's talking about the sun, moon, and stars. And this is, a couple thousand years after the Genesis 7 moment we just read. So after the flood, the Hebrew scholars and psalmists, priests and prophets, they understood that there's still waters above the firmament, above the heavens, because it's part of the creation model. Not all of them flooded down in during the flood. Some of them did, but not all. There's still waters up there, which is why we see the things the way we see them. So it's all in the Bible. It's all been described to us already. It's a beautiful working model that we could recreate with actual demonstrable science that would work with physics. And you don't have to worry about the second law of thermodynamics being broken, because you can create an enclosed container with pressurized gas. It all works. It all completely works. And it's just, we have been told that Genesis 1 is a fairy tale our whole life. We've been told that is just, oh, that's what they believed back then because they were cavemen, you know what I'm saying? But like, now we know because we have NASA. That's the indoctrination we've been told before we were ever in first grade.
Well, Sean, what's that good movie with Steve Carell where he's Noah? What's it called? I actually love that movie.
I forgot about that one, yeah.
Yeah, but I love that
Bruce
movie.
Almighty.
Yeah, how does Bruce Almighty get made? Because that was a great movie, and that was pro Noah. That was one of the coolest biblical movies I've seen, actually.
I think Bruce Almighty was with Jim Carrey, where he gets the powers of God for like a week.
Noah Almighty. But the one with Steve Carell was my favorite. I didn't like Bruce Almighty as much. I like the Noah one.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, Steve Carell was in the Noah one.
Bruce, but Steve Carell's my favorite.
But they're always going to make a mockery of it because if you truly show the book of Noah, like if you show the ark the way it was actually designed in scripture, it makes engineering sense. Did you guys know in the 1800s they started making large shipping cargo vessels that crossed the Atlantic after the dimensions of Noah's ark in the Bible because it was so seaworthy and it was hard to tip over?
I believe it. I mean, they make huge cruise ships now. I mean, I think these. And I believe that the same people that built the pyramid, they had some sort of secret Freemasonry building skills or something. They had some sort of knowledge through God, through a creator that we don't have today.
Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge that's been suppressed or lost or just intentionally not given to us in different generations because they want us to be dependent on them.
It's going to be a badass boat. It's that simple. They gave him the code. I mean, it's like you would play Mortal Kombat. He had the cheat code. He knew it was going to work. Yeah,
there's a lot to it. So ultimately, you've got Babylon was initially not just a tower in a city, but it was a system of control. It was the first world religion because all the peoples from the descendants of Noah, before they spoke different languages, they were all given their allegiance to Nimrod, who was the king of Babylon, the king of Shinar. And he had taken over all these cities around him to create this massive empire. This is why the idea of empires carries on throughout history. Even though the languages changed over time, they still wanted to go out. Ruling their own country was never enough. They wanted to go out in the honor and the former glory of Nimrod, and they wanted to take over other countries and put them into an empire because that was the standard of if we can get all these people back together again, we can have this former glory that they had when the tower was being built and all the people worked in one accord and could accomplish this. So this is why in Genesis 11, the creator says if we let them keep doing this, nothing that they imagine will be unattainable for them. So therefore he came down and confused the languages. And then you have all these nations pop up. Did you guys know that historians like etymologists and anthropologists, they struggle to find the reason from their understanding of why approximately 4,000 years ago, it seems like there was an explosion of culture of the different languages and they can't figure out, they don't see any progression.
And they can't, and they don't want to talk about the Tower of Babel. They don't want to bring that up. But they say they through their own documentation, they estimated at 4,000 years ago is when this culture explosion happened.
Yeah. So think about this. Now I'm just going to throw this out as a teaser because I don't even talk about this on my channel too often. But my channel would probably love me to go over Revelation more, and I'm actually creating a series for that coming up. But I don't talk about it that much so far. But the point is, the Tower of Babel happened a long time ago. They knew the creation model and they were trying to get through the level we live on. That's how much they believed in the creation model. And they were all working as one people group until they were scattered and split up into different nations because they couldn't understand each other anymore, right? So what happens in our modern day of technology when suddenly language translation technology and software is so easy that we can all speak again? So if the creator got involved the first time, that mankind in mass rebellion. So this is why I think we see the story of in Revelation 16 of Armageddon, where the nations and the armies of the world come together in cooperation with each other to try to fight the Messiah at his return because they know he's coming back, because they believe the Bible. This is the whole reason why they're trying to amass worldwide empire and global control, is because they need it to try to stand a chance with this big fight.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I know how I feel, regardless of the whole entire time that I've been alive, my different positions on my faith, that it feels good to do the right thing and to make other people feel good. And that one of my biggest motivators is trying to like create goodness in the world. And so and we talk about like the Holy Spirit and how the Holy Spirit works through us, and that we understand our true nature is understanding the difference between right and wrong. So what is going on with these people that want to pierce through and be able to do whatever they want? Like, why do people want to do bad things, Sean?
It's the unclean spirits. I'll go to a verse real quick for you if you have the time.
Satan, he casted out a third of the angels from heaven, and they're implanted. They got in our mindset. They want to defeat God. That's what Nimrod wanted to do. He really wanted to battle God. Literally, it's
but it doesn't feel good. Like I like to feel good, and I don't feel good. Like if I do something to accidentally hurt someone's feelings, I'm like really affected, like emotionally. So I just am trying to get into how it feels good to do bad things. And I know this is like such a basic question, but it bugs me, and I want to try and understand it from like maybe a scriptural perspective.
Yeah, it's its most simplistic way. It's just it's called the lust of the flesh, the pride of life. This idea that the body wants to gravitate towards destruction because that's been genetically passed down to us, but the unclean spirits prey upon that. And that's what's preyed upon to make that enhanced. And of course, they want to sell it with, like you'll feel good if you do these bad things. But we know that it truly doesn't make you feel good, which is where even all throughout history, you had pharmakia come in. And this is the manipulation of the plants, the liquors, the things that's why they literally call them spirits, because you get numbed from the pain of your bad regret and decisions. And so therefore you have to numb that pain. And this is where the pharmakia comes in. They've had this stuff since the days of the Watchers, which I'm about to read to you. So this is nothing's new, guys. Like we may have like lights and indoor plumbing and some AC in the car, but nothing's really new. Like all the same basic functions and philosophies and actions and consequences of life. It's all been going on since the very beginning. So real quick, I'll just go over this because this is what you asked me about. So this is the actual unclean spirits that actually are, it tells you right here that they are causing people to do what you just said, Rose, which is we know, like I read earlier from Romans 2, the law of God, which is his behavior, is written on our hearts, but there's other forces that want us to do the opposite of that. And Noah is having a dealing with this after the giants before the flood were all killed in the flood, and then their disembodied spirits were still around because they were this weird hybrid. That's what the Nephilim were originally created as. They were the mixture of the Watchers, which were the rebellious angels that came down from heaven and took wives, whomever they chose. And they're the father of these spirits, these unclean spirits. The spirits used to have bodies. They used to be the titans of old, the giants of old before the flood, but then they lost their bodies. Their spirits are this weird hybrid because their fathers were angels. And so they did not behave in the normal rules like a man's spirit when it dies and just goes to Sheol to wait judgment. So these guys are still on the earth roaming around, and Noah is praying to God for help because they're here and his grandkids are being affected by them right after the flood. And then this conversation takes place. And it says that, you know how your Watchers, the father of these spirits, acted in my day. And as for these spirits which are living, imprison them, hold them fast in the place of condemnation, and let them not bring destruction on the sons of your servant, my God. For these are malignant and created in order to destroy. That was their whole purpose. They were created to destroy us. And it says, let them not rule over the spirits of the living, for you alone can exercise dominion over them, and let them not have power over the sons of the righteous from henceforth and forevermore. And the Lord God, he bade, by the way, the us in verse 7 is the angels. This book of Jubilees is narrated by an angel to Moses on Mount Sinai during the 40 days that he's up there. So that when it says the word us in there, it's actually the angel talking about him and his boys and when they were doing stuff for God. So it says, and the Lord God bade us to bind all these unclean spirits Noah's talking about. And the chief of the spirits, Mastema, that's Satan, he came and said, Lord, Creator, let some of them remain before me, and let them hearken to my voice and do all that I say unto them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will in the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. For great is the wickedness of the sons of men. And then he says, let a 10th part of them remain before him, and let 9 parts descend into the place of condemnation. So the unclean spirits that affect people today, that affect the mind, the hearts, and the souls of the people you're asking about, Rose, that want to fight God, that hate God. Like it says in Psalms, those who hate God love death. This is This is why, because they're affected literally, spiritually by these things. And so
Yeah, it has to be that. What else would explain it?
Yeah, well, this is why you can literally, I mean, you guys seen Lord of the Rings, right? The Two Towers where Gandalf goes into the king who's been oppressed by the evil spirit, and he casts the worm tongue guy away from him, and then suddenly the evil spirit lifted off of him, and he can make right decisions again and rule his kingdom righteously again. You guys remember that movie?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out forever ago. I don't remember it that well.
Sorry, it may be too far back, but
everybody loved it. I just watched it with some friends, and it looks like Rose wasn't into Lord of the Rings either.
No, but everyone around me loves it and has all of the.
Yeah. I just remember
into it. I need to get back into Lord of the Rings just for the symbolism, and apparently the writer seems to have a lot of background knowledge.
Yeah,
there's a lot of symbolism.
Yeah, he's from a Catholic background too, so demonology, spirits, that kind of stuff. He definitely infused a lot of that in the writing. But all I was trying to say with that real quick was just there. This is the part that the world today doesn't want you to. They don't want the conversation that we're having right now. They would just laugh at this. Oh, you guys still believe in demons? It's the devil made me do it. And you're like, hey man, can you tell me why someone, like you're saying, Rose, against all common logic and observation in life, wants to go and slay an entire family in the middle of the night? Can you tell me what purpose that serves for them?
Yeah, but in the Bible, don't they say that the good guys win? So don't they already know that they're going to lose no matter what?
Well, that's not the deception going through the mind of the person that's being influenced by these unclean spirits, led into madness. This is why you see, and mental health has drastically brainwashed us. This is a whole topic I don't hear truthers talking about, is the mental health that started in the 60s, where they started redefining literally what they were being treated for in mental health facilities, which was to take away the idea to affect their heart and their mind, and started just doping them up and then just making them zombies.
Uptake inhibitors, dude. It's terrible. And they actually create more suicidal idealization. So I think I talk about, I'm just funny. The big pharma is not created to help us. It's literally created to keep us sick.
Well, remember I used that Greek word earlier from Deuteronomy 13. It's called pharmakia, and that's where we get the word pharmaceutical. So it's literally witchcraft. It's like the herbal medicinal version of witchcraft. But the point is,
from the holly tree, they would make their wand from the wood of the holly tree to cast their spells. And so that's what Hollywood does, is they use their media to cast their spells on us.
That's why you watch your programming on a channel.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's the classic truth or tropes there. But the point is, this concept here that we're talking about, Rose, this is what affects people's hearts and minds. And when it does, you have a choice. Like you either let it come deeper and further, because this, to me, the safeguard you have against this, and this is what I went back to earlier. I know this is going to sound silly, guys, but just, take it for what you will. Forgiveness. If you hold on to anger, it's just like Yoda says, anger leads to hate, right? Yeah. So like if you hold on to the anger and the unforgiveness, you're just basically opening a door for the unclean spirits to get further into your heart and your soul, to the point where it literally causes madness on a physiological level in your brain. It causes schizophrenia. It breaks the mind, because you cannot handle being possessed, either short term or long term.
Right. Dude, you're 100% right. It's because what happens is we self-sabotage our lives, and then we can't give ourselves forgiveness. So we hate ourselves. And so yes, we need to forgive people that have transgressions against us, but a lot of us need to, the transgressions we actually did, we need to forgive ourselves because we accidentally self-sabotage. That's the problem with society, is because we're so mad at ourselves, it puts us in that negative vortex where we want to get on SSRIs because we're depressed and we think a pill's going to fix it, when it's really we need to forgive ourselves. I think you nailed it, Sean.
Well, and that's what will help us to move forward.
Yeah,
we can't move forward if we're stuck there.
I personally didn't come up with this. This is Jesus, where he said, if you love your neighbor as you love yourself. So you got to love yourself in that process, which means you got to forgive yourself for all the mistakes and all the pain and all the carnage you may have caused at some point in your life. But ultimately, if you try to numb that pain with pharmaceuticals or pharmakia, you're just opening a door for more bad things to take over your heart and your mind, and lead to a breaking of your heart and your mind, literally, to where you become psychotic, forms of psychosis. You may even get to the point where you're, on national TV, standing next to a president, telling people they need to wash their hands every 20 minutes and never shake hands again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Because you're ruled by fear. No, you're a part of a club. But I'm sure you guys know all about Fauci.
He's the worst, and he's a big time Catholic. He's a paganist, isn't he? Isn't he a huge John Paul the Pope fan? Am I right about that, Sean?
I honestly don't know his religious conviction. I just know that he's been instrumental in the HIV research and propaganda.
He worships Nimrod. I know it. I can tell you that much. So tell me, Sean, what is the Masonic connection? Why can't the Masons talk about God? Like, who do they, since they worship the devil, how is their connection to our pop culture? Is it because the Masons are in the media? Is that why we worship the devil? Is that why they're able to put Baal in it? Like, how is their connection to their influence of the occult in our world?
I think a lot. It's okay. I think a lot of Masons don't know what the higher levels of Masons actually worship. I think the whole what is the philosophy? The slogan of the Masons is ask one to know one or something like that, or ask one to basically they don't go out and actively recruit, but they want you to ask about it and be inquired about it, which to me is giving that voluntary opening the door right there. They want your compliance. Yeah. So they want you to ask about it basically. But when they get you in, even to the third degree, which is supposedly like your first milestone, they don't tell you the truth. I mean, did you hear that interview with Mark Sargent where he's interviewing the former Mason who came out?
A couple times. It's he didn't say crap really the whole time.
Well, did you not hear that he talked about when he got to like the 30th or 31st level or whatever, how they did that big Egyptian ceremony for them?
But
the true name of God.
To the 32nd, right? Am I right?
Yeah. He left after that ceremony because he realized
his story seemed. This is all I'm saying is I listened to it, but I kind of listened to it with a grain of salt because why would he be revealing all that? So, but go ahead. Sorry, I'm going off a tangent. I wanted to hear what you were making.
It's okay. No, I'm just saying, I think a lot of the Masons at the top levels know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what kind of hierarchy they're in as an organization. But the ones at the lower levels, they just think they're a part of a good charitable organization in their city that gives them, possibly a one up with the city attorney or with the big insurance guy or whomever, the judge. They think they're just getting in with the clique. You know what I mean? It's because it's the fear of man, right? It's what people want to be accepted, right? So imagine you're in the secret society and you get accepted. And they'd love you, and they think, "Oh, you got your secret handshakes." I mean, it's like adults playing childhood clubhouse.
Yeah, it's sad.
And they indoctrinate kids. They get all these kids to be in a fraternity in college, and so that's their first.
Right, that's the programming. It's getting them thinking about entering these hierarchies, and that's the cool thing to do, and that's the goal. It's gross. Yeah, every little girl wants to be in a sorority.
Because I didn't want to go through pledgeship. I didn't want to get my ass kicked for a year. I was going in my sophomore year. I didn't think it was cool to get spanked by a bunch of dudes. I'm not hating on people. I'm my best friend who are in fraternity, so I'm not hating on it. But that's how it's the indoctrination. They get these kids used to doing secret, secret society type meetings, and then it just leads into what's the next level of this? Is there like a more serious one for adults, or not everybody's shit-faced drunk date raping girls? And then there you go. It just starts, it gets more intense.
Yeah, it really never appealed to me because I always wanted to be friends with everybody. I wanted to just be able to go around and hang out with this group or that group or the other. And so a sorority just seemed a little bit too limiting.
Yeah, I remember Rush Week and people coming and talk to me, and I was just like, I could see the moment, I had already seen these guys around campus and they never wanted to interact with me. But suddenly they want to be my best friend and come hang out and invite me over to parties and stuff. And I'm like, this seems too fake for me. So I never got into the Greek life myself. But again, I was that weirdo.
That's all based on Greek stuff too. What the heck? I forget that's Greek life. What the heck? That's Greek.
Yeah.
Yes.
No wonder there's so much butt stuff during Rush Week, huh?
Exactly. It is kind of a gay thing. The Hell Week, Rush Week is kind of homosexual tendency stuff. Spanking and drinking, blindfolds, humiliation rituals. There's a lot of weird stuff to the Rush Week or the whatever week it is in the fraternity. Rush Week, Hell Week.
Yeah, for anyone in the audience watching right now, if you have children about to go into some sort of college, just do your research on what clubs they're joining, what classes they're taking, what professors they're listening to, because you're not. I know that there's prestige built around it. I know your child is already excited about going there because all their friends are. But guys, it's mass indoctrination.
Yeah.
You can learn all that same information elsewhere and still get a job and be successful.
Yes.
You really can. It's not that difficult. Real quick. If anyone's in the chat and you're still listening to us and not talking amongst yourselves, looks like we got about 113 people watching right now. So that's a pretty big number because we've been going for almost 2 hours. If you have any questions for Alex or for Rose, put them in all caps, and then we can get to them. I've been watching the chat as we've been talking. I didn't see a lot directly aimed at us, but now I want to open it up to everyone listening. Put them in all capitalization so we can see them easily, and fire your questions away for all of us. So yeah, Alex, thanks for coming on, brother. And Rose, thanks for joining me again. Yeah, it's fun conversation. Hopefully I didn't go too deep into the Bible stuff. I just trying to, skim the layers here. But if you are interested, Alex, in any things I was talking about, I've got about 300 videos that does go deep, and I try to break them down into playlists that try to walk you through and lead you through appropriately. So
I'm about to look at it right now. I want to look at, well, what do you have? What stuff do you have about Babylon? I want to look into what the heck was going on there.
I don't have a lot about Babylon. That's the actual series I'm working on.
That's what you're working on now. I'm going to watch your Babylon series.
And here's the thing. It has to do with flat earth so much that it's going to blow people away, because I've never heard any other person talking about this. And it's about the firmament and the Tower of Babel. And there's a lot of stuff involved in it, but I'm putting together a series to show all the propaganda throughout history and also in culture mediums like media and art and entertainment. But our first question is from Julie Steinbreck, and she's asking, how did Alex come to know about the flat earth?
Well, for me, the flat earth is like, I really started to get into conspiracies before Hillary Clinton. It was like, I remember I was kind of diet woke before Patrice O'Neill died. He used to talk about the Obama deception and like 9/11 was an inside job, but I just chose not. I listened to him talk about it, but I was like, oh, he's full of crap. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The mainstream media is right. And then basically in like 2015, during that Hillary election, when Pizzagate came out, I just was like, wait, what? And I'd seen some videos about flat earth. Like I had seen some of the controlled disinformation about it. I forget what like the first big story, but I'm like, oh, that's fake, But I think it was like 2014 or 2015, the Mars rover. I was watching footage of the Mars rover footage. And one of the suggested videos was that Eric Dubé, 200 proofs the earth is not a spinning ball or whatever, 200 proofs the earth is flat. And I'm telling you, as soon as I started watching it, I was like a duck to water. I don't know how you were, Sean, but for some reason, it started making a lot of sense. And I'm not sounding like a crazy person, but as soon as they told me that I'm not spinning 1,100 miles an hour around the equator, because I never felt like I was spinning. Because I remember as a kid them explaining it and then thinking, oh, if we're moving right now, I kind of have like motion sickness. Like, are we on a roller coaster? Could the ball ever drop? Like, I remember as a kid thinking, like, what keeps our Earth from not just dropping out of the sky and we all die? Like, I actually had that thought as a kid. So when then I realized the flat Earth, we're built on pillars and we don't move. I'm like, well, it doesn't feel like we move. Eric Dubé, that proof makes sense. And then another proof makes sense. Then another proof. And then after you hear 200 proofs, you're like, we might not be on a freaking spinning ball. And then you go into months of the doubt. Oh, there's no way the Earth's flat. They couldn't hide this. Then you got to spend months doing the NASA research, because then you got to debunk NASA. You got to debunk the moon. You got to debunk Don Pettit. You got to debunk the ISS. But then once you get there, once you know who Don Pettit is, you're a flat earther forever. You realize you're not on a spinning ball. So you have to get into it. But for me, when I realized that the Earth wasn't spinning, it started making a lot of sense. It actually gave me, my anxiety went down, made me feel good knowing that the official story was a lie, because my senses told me an exact opposite one of the official narrative.
All right. That's hopefully that's a good answer for you, Julie. And looks like we got a couple more questions here.
How did you make the flat Earth, Sean? When did you figure out the Earth was not a spinning ball?
It was 2015. I was at the gym on the treadmill listening to a podcast.
You the Bible in '97, so you were freaking really into that.
No, I had a lot of questions of things, of chapters and verses and statements in the Bible that never made sense to me until this hour in the gym listening to this podcast, and they were talking about flat Earth, and I started laughing. And I've told this story before that I laughed out loud to the girl next to me on the treadmill, looked over at me looking like I was crazy because I just started laughing out loud. That's how much that cognitive dissonance kicked in, because I thought it was stupid, because I loved science growing up. I mean, I got an A on an English paper that I did as a senior about event horizons and relativity. Like, I was super into. You
wrote a paper about event horizons. Yeah, that movie scared me to death. The movie Event Horizon.
No, not the movie. The actual scientific term.
The scientific term. I'm just saying that movie was scary. Was it Lawrence Fishburne? I forget who.
Yeah, Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne. That was a really scary one. But so yeah, I was totally into science. I thought it was great, and I thought it was helped you explain God, right? Because I thought it was great. But I always had trouble mixing it.
Where was God in your mental solar system?
That's one of the big problems, is because if you believe the heliocentric model and you believe what the scriptures say over and over and over, then that makes you ignore the biblical creation model, ignore Genesis 1, and have to reinterpret it. And also it makes you have like a space Jesus, that he has to come back through space somehow, right? Yeah. So this is where some churches teach more of a Thanos Jesus, where he's coming back through like a portal. But that's depends on which denomination you're in, because they're
Sean, a portal. They say Jesus is going to.
No. I was saying, like, some churches, they don't talk about space Jesus because that would be the logical conclusion within the helio model they have to teach. So they try to get around that by creating what they call ripping back the veil. It's like an interdimensional portal that Jesus has to come through in order to get from wherever he is, which is unseen in heaven, to us. So the point is, the whole thing hid heaven from us. The whole thing hid the firmament above us, where literally the Creator lives above us, and all the up, down, left, right descriptions in the scriptures about how he's literally bringing his house and his son and himself down, in this future event, and that he's going to stop all the madness on the earth. So that whole storyline didn't make logical and contextual sense to me, and I was really struggling with that until I heard this, and I had this sick feeling in my stomach as I was listening, because I realized all these verses that I've been studying all these years made perfect sense inside the model. Yeah. And when, like, for the first hour, I was sick to my stomach, but then after that, it was like a great wave of relief, because I realized, oh my gosh, this makes sense of the Bible. And
now you feel sick to your stomach because you can't believe you were tricked.
Well, yeah, and because I'm also, I'm thinking about, people are going to think I'm crazy, but clearly I've gotten over that.
Yeah, see, because we're talking about it, but we still haven't gotten over it, Sean. I'll never get over how crazy I am, that I don't think, because I think about it all the time. I walk into a room and I'm talking to these people, and I'm like, none of these people even know that we're not on a spinning ball. Like, I'll always have some sort of, even though when I first kind of knew the earth is flat, and I brought it up to like my friends or people I know, you can tell they're not receptive to it. So I don't have any interest in trying to convert somebody to flat earth, because it's something it's your own journey. But it is a scarlet letter knowing this knowledge and not everybody else knowing. It sucks, because we would treat each other so much different. But people are on a space ball with space Jesus and the ISS and space this and space rockets and everything space. Yet space has given us nothing. We've given space everything, and it's given us nothing.
You ever seen those depictions, Alex, about the New Jerusalem and its dimensions, and a model that's trying to sit down on a ball Earth?
No,
it's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. And in fact, that the ISS would just run into it.
I've seen, I don't think it was Jerusalem or Israel, but I've seen some stuff like how is the description of the four corners on a ball? How is that even possible? How can you have four corners on a ball? Right. But I think I saw somebody trying to depict it on a ball. It was the stupidest model I've ever saw. It didn't make any sense.
Someone's asking you, Alex, the BHSC is asking, do you believe in a geocentric flat Earth?
Of course, yeah. The sun, moon, and stars rotate around us. Yeah.
So I think they're maybe asking that. Usually that terminology that I see people asking is this: do you still believe in space? Oh, what I've been describing tonight is
I just believe space. I'm just using it as a term. There's liquid, the space above us, but like the ever expanding universe of space, of the Milky Way traveling through ever expanding space. No, but yeah, there's something above us. There's there's a firmament. There's some liquid that's being held in an area. But like, why is the sky blue and space black? Like when we get a balloon, you go up and that's black, but when we look in the sky, it's blue. So like, I don't know. There are still some confusing things I don't understand.
Well, the BHSC is new to my channel, so he hasn't seen all my videos, but it looks like he's not on board with biblical cosmology. So I would just say to you, brother, the BHSC, like, you want to go to my creation playlist where I actually go over science. I think your dad will be very interested to see the videos where I actually review science in relationship to the biblical cosmology. And at the same time, I would strongly encourage actually looking at the definitions of the word firmament and heaven in the Bibles, because if you're a believer, you come to a serious logical impasse trying to put a heliocentric model into what the Bible describes. So I'll leave that challenge for you, buddy.
And you need to look up the North Star. Explain how Polaris is in the same spot every single night, where they say we're going 4 different directions. They say that we're spinning 1,100 miles around the equator. Then they say we're orbiting the sun 66,600 miles an hour. And then on top of that, the sun is shooting 1,000,000 miles an hour. Yet the North Star, Polaris, is in the same spot every single night. So how would that even that's all you got to know. The North Star debunks the globe model, dead in its rights.
Yeah, it does. Rose, are you still there? I think she.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still here. Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you were
Sorry.
not. I didn't know if
I
there was a problem with the feed or not because I couldn't see the.
No, there wasn't a problem with it. I just kind of changed my position for a moment because I have the most adorable kitten right next to me. And so I was kind of looking off camera. I'm sorry. She's just so
What's
cute.
horrible?
Alex understands.
Is it biting you? What is that kitten doing? There's no such thing as a bad kitten.
She's just looking at me right now with the biggest pupils.
Sounds like you guys, the two of you, need to get all your kittens together for playtime.
Yeah, I know. I can't
Yeah.
hang with Rose. I got 4. Rose has 7. Is that right, Rose?
Well, we have 5, but we also have more in other locations, and we have to see. We have in our old house, we left one behind because she was pregnant with brand new kittens, and so we were going to let the kittens. And she keeps getting pregnant, and so we just are waiting for that opportunity to snatch her and get her fixed, to then bring her back. In the meantime, we're just keeping that location, and these cats have absolutely no clue that they have their own like trailer. Like we pay for the rent on the trailer there, and the cats just live there, and we have the neighbors feed them. It's hilarious.
Sean, before we end it, what do you think about Planned Parenthood being open on Easter Sunday, but the church closed on Easter Sunday? Would you ever thought in your lifetime the church would be closed on Easter Sunday?
It's really sad. There are a few churches in the town we live in that do have in-person services, but the majority of them are closed. It's just really sad because at the same time, you can go to restaurants, take off your mask, sit next to each other. You can go anywhere you want. Yeah, it's crazy. But Planned Parenthood, I mean, it makes sense if we're really literally every, the government ordinances through every state and federally were ran by Luciferian occultists who practice child sacrifice. Like this.
Isn't it crazy that all of the churches just capitulated to this nonsense immediately? Wouldn't you think that in a real world, that it would be the churches that are fighting back and saying, hello, I believe in my own, connection to the divine and my immune system and being healthy, but everyone just followed. And I wonder if there is a conspiracy associated with all of the insincere mega churches where their main concern is obviously making money. And so all of the smaller churches are maybe just following the bigger churches, which are just taking orders. But I have some good news if you want to hear a little bit of positivity. In Texas, we have a listener, one of our Coachable 7 radio listeners. His name is Jeff, and he never once closed his church. Now, he went online and said, if somebody wants to attend our services over the internet, that's still available, but they never once closed their door, and they saw through the nonsense right from the beginning. And so they just plant seeds, here and there with people in their community. And we can only hope that there are more like Jeff out there that will keep, spreading that knowledge.
Rose, Nazi Germany. He's got to secretly keep his church open. What are we in China? What are we?
Well, he's not doing it secretly.
I'm just saying, what is a society going on where it's a big deal that a guy kept his church? It's like me, like Sean said, it's a big deal because I wore a Target mask and I wore a Zorro mask in the Target. We are so robbed for anything of real substance. This is what we're clinging on to, that this guy's a hero, and he is a hero for staying open. But every church should have stayed open. No church should have closed down. Should have said, I have my First Amendment right. If the world was burning, they said there was a chemical gas that made you go outside and you immediately died. People should be able to wear hazmat suits and go to church. You know what I mean? I don't care what is going on. They should be able to go to church no matter what.
If there was a real concern, they wouldn't need to legislate anything. If there was a real scary virus around, they wouldn't need to tell us what to do. There people be dropping like flies in the streets, and it would be like a post-apocalyptic movie where everyone's getting together and figuring out how to survive. But now it's just about order following.
Do you guys remember
Revelation of Method?
Do you remember back in May, the story that came out in Louisiana about that Baptist church, that small congregation of 50 people, and they were not staying home, and they continued having church, and then someone from that area, they came and literally did arson to their church and burned their church down, and then they spray painted in the church parking lot. They spray painted, I bet you'll stay home now. So
That's
that kind
disgusting.
of stuff, that kind of stuff gets pushed into the media so that other churches go, oh, well, maybe we should just stay home a little bit instead of all this.
I think that might be poppycock. Maybe that was just controlled stagecraft. Maybe that didn't actually happen, and they were just acting in order for people to believe that it was happening, so that people wouldn't, copy them and risk the same thing happening to them.
Yeah, well, there's been multiple news articles of churches staying open and saying parishioners got coronavirus. There's been multiple that in the news. Multiple.
Well, I mean, of course, that's if you believe the tests, right? The false, all the tests. Just like when people say, I know someone that died from corona, I'm like, did they really, or was that what was put on the death certificate? Like,
Right.
how are you getting your information? But
They have diabetes. They have kidney disease.
Cancer.
I mean,
so earlier in tonight, but you changed your filter so that we could see you better, Alex. And it has this very nice tan on you now, whereas I kind of look more white, right? For my
I know.
lights.
very red. I don't
Yeah.
know why I look like a freaking strawberry. My
You
lighting.
know, you remind
think
me
it
of
looks
that.
good.
You remind me of the girl that ate the blueberry in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Remember?
Kinda. And I'm like, it's just because I'm sun tanning. I'm
Yeah.
always in the sun with the
Chilling.
cat. I have a lot of
Get some good rays in that castle. But brother, I really thank you for coming on. I want to wish you well with your channel as it grows. Same with you, Rose. I know that your channel, you just got a strike, right? You got a ban?
Yeah, I did get a strike, and so I can't stream on my channel, but I do have a backup channel, Rose 777 2.0. And what I've been doing is streaming to that channel and then uploading and premiering it as a video on the main channel. And also, I'm grateful for this opportunity because now, because of this, I was motivated to start setting up my D Live. So now I'm streaming all of my stuff to the D Live account that I share with Crow and Jason. So that's a whole new opportunity.
Yeah, I'm on 2 strikes too. My next strike, my original conspiracy castle is gone. I know any day they're going to just strike one of my old videos. But I'm saying I kind of look at it as blessing in disguise because now I'm on D Live and now I have to build another channel. So I'm not even relying on it. So it's like I'm already treating it like it's gone. So it's actually helping me, I think.
Well,
Isn't
I think that Sean
bad?
was telling me about another solution that we might be able to utilize. And so I'm going to have him on my channel to talk about it.
Yeah, I've actually been working with some people over the last year, and these are serious people. These are movers and shakers. So they're actually going to be have and are almost finished creating an entire new social media. It's nothing like you've ever seen before, guys. This is amazing. It's integrating video, a social media, and a marketplace. So that's just for fun, right? For the homepage and for the mobile scrolling, that's all fun and games to have those integrated. And people will see what I mean. I can't reveal too much yet. As we get closer to launch, I'm gonna actually put out advertising videos we're creating. But for you and I, for us that worry about strikes, we're not gonna have to worry about the Liiighthouse. There's not gonna be any banning for all this nonsense. Truth can be truth and get out there. Freedom of speech is the underlying platform principle. That's everyone involved in this are first A and 2A amendment supporters. They're patriots. These are people that want to get back into healthy discourse. Like I told you before we started, they're even working on an entire separate segment within the system for just debates, because that's how much they love freedom of speech and healthy discourse. So this thing is called Liiighthouse, and Liiighthouse will allow you as a content creator to you could have multiple channels, by the way, if you wanted to, but imagine just your main channels connected instantly to your social media profile, and you have a store if you want to sell stuff. You don't have to go through Teespring. You don't have to wait to get 10,000 subs with YouTube before you start selling stuff. Like, you can, from day one, with one sub, you can open up a store and start selling stuff, and it's literally on the left-hand side of the screen as your video is playing, and you can choose what's being seen specifically to each video. So if I sold Firmament shirts, and Alex, you were like, man, that shirt's a hot seller, I'd love to sell that on my video that I'm going to talk about the Bible and cosmology and flat earth deception, and you want to put this shirt as a product in your store during that specific video, you could do that, and then we would split sales.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Then it takes away a little of the legwork. That's cool.
You know what I love about that, the whole marketplace idea, is because right now, more than ever, I really want to support my friends' businesses and people in this community and people who, have mask-free businesses. I just want to uplift all of us who are trying to be good people and do the right thing. And so I love that connection.
Yeah, as far as actual donations to creators, both in live chats or also just donations through their system, we're going to make it easier than what YouTube's doing, and we're not going to take 30% off super chats either. So it's going to be a beautiful system for content creators and for people that like Etsy. People are getting suppressed and banned too. They actually have to pay for Premiere in the search results, so we're not going to have that. It's just going to be based off algorithm and what the people love. It's going to be simplistic, and it's going to be freedom of speech. So we're just excited to share the word with people. And as two content creators I'm looking at that have already suffered censorship heavily, and I might get my first strike after this conversation tonight. After all this, I just want to tell you, hope is coming, okay? Because we're on the verge, just weeks away, being able to launch, and this is a huge project. It's actually become so huge that we used to do all these Zoom meetings late into the night figuring out all the algorithm stuff and figuring out all like how we're going to integrate things and all the partner program and the dashboard. And like we would see the record light come on with our Zoom and we weren't recording. So there's been a lot of weird stuff that's been happening. A lot of the Facebook changes. Yeah, like Facebook changes you've been seeing and stuff that they've changed Twitter recently. And even on YouTube in the past 7 months, a lot of these changes, guys, were our idea. And so that's why Facebook has a whole new
why when I say New Balance, a new ad for New Balance tennis shoes comes on my phone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they can hear you're talking about social media or what, you know what I mean? A new platform. That sends off definitely alerts to the AI.
Yeah. But thankfully, the good news is we have a patent pending. So this means that we actually got approved for a patent for the overall design and functionality, including the partner program, which is nothing like anyone's ever seen, guys. As far as people that create content, we're going to be able to reach new audiences so much faster. Like I teased you a few days ago, Alex, if you and I actually wanted to partner up with Liiighthouse as content creators, you could say, hey, I'm going to be put on this video next week. You want to partner with me on that video? And I say, sure, that'd be great. And you're say, okay, which video do you want to link to this video? And you and I could actually link videos that autoplay next to each other. And when you put out your video, all of my subscribers and followers get notified.
On the video we're linked with. Wow. Yeah. So that's good when you have the cross streams. That's perfect. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we've created some really cool things that is gonna no shadow banning, no censoring, all that nonsense. And we're just excited. But we're gonna need people to get the word out because we're going up against Google and Facebook and YouTube. You know what I mean? So like we're gonna need people to support it and come over. But we have high hopes, and because we know we have a solid system that people want. We've basically it's a bunch of feedback we took from people and we made a system out of it. So we're excited.
I love it.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely want to talk about it on my show with you and tell everyone I know about it. And then maybe we can get you on Secrets of Saturn too. And just try to reach as many audiences as possible, because everyone kind of has to try and migrate over to the same one, I think. And this sounds like a really excellent choice, better than any other ones that I've ever heard of.
I haven't heard of any good choices yet, and we all need to migrate to the same one. Even though that kind of sounds like a stupid, elitist, cultist. We all go to the same one, but in reality, we probably need to go together to get some sort of credibility with ourselves.
Well, I'm going to put this on screen real quick before we end. And this is, I just started this 3 or 4 days ago. This is a part of our beginning launch. Let me take some of these messages off the screen. This is a part of our beginning launch for Liiighthouse. And this is just our first month starting to talk about it and advertise it. And this has been up for not even 4 days, and we're almost at 4,000 members. So this is how much people want and this is growing to 1,000 members a day. So that's people awesome. They're hungry for this, guys. They want to be part of this. If you tell your audiences about this, tell them to go to the Facebook group for liiighthouse.com. This is the first place we're going to start giving out information. We put out videos and posts and explanations of things, and also fun memes. But we put out all kinds of stuff to let people know, like this is an example of shadow banning of a channel that had 100,000 subscribers, and they were shadow banned for an entire year in the red.
Wow. And
so we're just showing people what's been going on. And so, Liiighthouse, go check it out. And I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for me, because I don't want to get taken off YouTube. We work hard. I only have like 8,000 subs, but we work hard for it. You know what I'm saying? Who knows how big our channels would be if this were 2017 before these algorithms kicked in?
It'd be way bigger. Way bigger.
You'd be at 100,000, Sean.
Who knows? Like we know that Jeranism just leveled off at like 150 for the last 18 months. You know what I mean? It's just so sad. It's so sad. But anyway, thanks for coming on, guys. Y'all are awesome. And hopefully we get to do more things in the future. And is there anything you'd like to say before you go?
No, I really enjoyed it, Sean. Your knowledge is great, and I would need to come back on so we can go even deeper into the Bible. We didn't even get it. We didn't even crack the Genesis. We cracked like 2 pages of it, maybe.
Okay, I'm willing to do that, man. I'm glad to have you back on. Rose, anything you'd like to say before you go?
Just thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to scheduling our stream on my channel.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And as always, tomorrow night we'll be doing another Milk and Meat episode, so I hope to see you there.
All right. Bye-bye.